Welcome back to Iron Fate Stories. How is your day going today? Today, we're diving once again into incredibly exciting and thrilling stories about bikers. If you enjoy the content, please like, share, and subscribe to get notified about the latest stories. Enjoy the show.
Bullied teen protected a new schoolboy from a cruel prank. Next day, the biker president stepped out first. The first time Carter Knox heard the phone camera start recording, it was already too late. A new kid was on his knees on cold tile, blinking glitter out of his eyes, while three seniors laughed like it was a sport. Carter stepped between them anyway, and the biggest one smiled and whispered, "Good. We needed a villain." Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you are watching this from. The senior raised his hand to drive the kid's face down again, and Carter grabbed his wrist and break. Carter's fingers locked around the boy's wrist. The skin was warm. The grip was steady. The smile wasn't. Trent Mallory didn't look like someone who'd ever been told no. Letterman jacket, clean haircut, the kind of face teachers trusted without thinking. In Hollow Creek, that was power. Behind Trent, Logan Beck held up his phone, laughing too loud. Chase Vickers stood a step back with his hands in his pockets, calm as a man watching rain. On the bench, the new kid, Eli, swallowed hard and tried to wipe his eyes. Gray-blue sludge and glitter clung to his hoodie and lashes. He looked like he'd been dunked in a joke that tasted like bleach. Trent's eyes stayed on Carter. "Let go." Carter didn't. His heartbeat hammered in his throat. He'd promised himself 100 times he wouldn't get involved. Not after last year. Not after the bruises, the detentions, the whispers that followed him like dogs. But Eli's breathing had gone thin, panicked, the way it does right before someone breaks. "Leave him alone," Carter said. Logan laughed. "Listen to Knox acting like he's the hall monitor." Trent tilted his head, still smiling. "You're always where you don't belong." That was the truth of Carter's life. He belonged nowhere in the school except the bottom, too poor to blend in, too tired to perform. He worked evenings at Benny's Gas to keep his mom's lights on and her prescriptions filled. He slept in a room that smelled like laundry detergent and worry. He came to school already losing. Trent pulled his arm once, testing Carter's grip. "You know what's funny?" he said softly. "We didn't even plan for you. Then you walked in and it's like the universe loves me." Eli's voice came out raw. "I just needed my schedule." "That's what we told you," Logan said, mocking. "Freshman packet by the showers." Carter finally understood. Eli wasn't the target. He was bait. Trent leaned closer, phone now in his other hand, the red recording dot bright and hungry. "Say something for the camera, Knox." Carter's stomach dropped. "Turn it off." Trent raised his brows like Carter had asked the sun to stop shining. "Nah, this is public service." Chase moved without warning, one smooth step, and his hand clamped down on Eli's shoulder. He shoved Eli back onto the bench, not hard enough to bruise, just hard enough to steal air and dignity. Eli gagged, stunned. Carter's grip tightened on Trent's wrist. "Don't touch him." Trent's smile sharpened. "There it is." Chase reached for Eli again, and Carter shifted, body between them. Trent took the opening and shoved Carter in the chest. Metal lockers rang when Carter hit them. Pain shot through his shoulder. His head snapped back, vision flashing white for a split second. Logan whooped like they were at a game. "Oh, Knox is swinging." Carter wasn't swinging. He was trying to stand. Trent lifted his phone higher, angling it so Carter looked bigger, closer, dangerous. "Look at this," he narrated, loud and clear. "Carter Knox dragging a freshman into the locker room." "That's a lie," Eli said, voice shaking. "He pulled me back." Chase cut him off with another shove. "Shut up." Eli's eyes watered again, not just from sludge, from humiliation, from the sudden realization that nobody in this room was going to help him. Carter's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. He could feel it. Trent turning reality into a story in real time, molding it around the camera. Carter made himself go still. Trent laughed. "What? You think if you stop moving the video won't work?" He leaned in, voice dropping low enough that only Carter could hear. "Your mom still sick?" Carter froze. Trent's grin widened at the reaction. "Yeah, I know." That's what Hollow Creek did. It found the one thing you couldn't protect and touched it anyway. Carter's hands curled into fists, then forced themselves open again. If he swung, he'd lose everything. If he didn't, Eli would. Eli tried to stand. His knee shook. He made it halfway up before his foot slid on the slick tile near the drain. A second bucket came flying. Chase swung it this time, snapping his arms forward like a pitcher. The sludge slapped into Eli's chest and face, heavier than the first. Eli stumbled, hit the bench, and doubled over, coughing. Logan shrieked with laughter and filmed it from 2 feet away. Carter lunged toward Eli, instinct pure and stupid, and Trent stepped in, shoulder-checking him back. "Careful," Trent said, loud for the camera. "He's getting aggressive." Carter's breath sawed in and out. He looked at Eli's shaking hands, at the glitter stuck to his lashes like tears he couldn't wipe away, and something cold settled in Carter's gut. He couldn't win this fight, not the way they wanted it. So Carter did the one thing Trent didn't expect. He spoke to Eli, not to them. "Eyes on me," Carter said. "Stand up. Slow." Eli blinked, confused, then locked onto Carter like a lifeline. Carter moved in, palms open, and helped Eli to his feet. Eli leaned into him for one unsteady second, like he might pass out. Trent's phone stayed trained on Carter's hands. "Touching him now," Trent announced. "Sick." "Stop," Carter said louder. "This is done." Trent's smile didn't move. "Not until we get what we came for." Logan pointed his camera at Eli. "Say you're scared, new kid. Say Carter did this." Eli swallowed hard. His voice shook, but it held. "Carter didn't do anything. You did." For the first time, Logan's laughter faltered. Chase's eyes narrowed. Trent's smile stayed, but it turned mean. "Wrong answer." He swung his arm like he was going to slap Eli. Carter caught Trent's wrist again. Same move, faster this time. That was all Trent needed. He ripped his arm free and threw himself backward, selling it like a stuntman. His shoulder hit the lockers. He made a noise that sounded like pain. "Coach!" Logan shouted instantly like it was scripted. "Coach, help!" Footsteps pounded outside. The locker room door banged open, and Coach Brannigan filled the frame. Thick neck, whistle, authority. His eyes flicked over Eli's mess, then landed on Carter like a magnet. Trent straightened, suddenly the picture of shock. "Coach, we tried to stop him," Trent said fast. "He dragged the new kid in here. We've been recording because we didn't know what else to do." Logan shoved his phone forward. "We got it all." Eli took a shaky step. "That's not—" Coach's glare cut him off without a word. "Knox," he growled. "Again?" Carter's mouth went dry. "Coach, Coach pointed toward the door. "Office, now!" Eli's voice cracked. "Sir, they dumped—" "Office!" Coach repeated louder, like Eli was background noise. Trent's eyes met Carter's for a split second. Pure satisfaction. They walked out into the hallway. Students stared. Somebody laughed. Somebody filmed. Glitter dripped from Eli's hoodie onto the floor, sparkling under fluorescent lights like a trail of shame. Carter kept his shoulders square, even though one of them screamed with every step. He'd been marched to the office before. He knew the routine. The adult version of, "We don't want to know." Eli's voice came out small. "Why did you help me?" Carter didn't look at him. "Because they weren't going to stop." Eli swallowed. "Now they'll come after you." Carter breathed out through his nose. "They already have." Principal Harlan didn't invite them in. He summoned them. His office looked like a lawyer's, dark wood, framed awards, leather chairs. A school resource officer stood by the file cabinet, arms crossed, watching Carter like he already knew the ending. Harlan's eyes went to Eli. "First and last name." "Eli Kane," Eli said. For a split second, Harlan's smile stalled, then returned. "Welcome to Hollow Creek," Coach Brannigan spoke fast. "Knox was in there again, starting a fight." Carter's throat burned. "I stopped it." Eli shook his head, glitter still stuck in his lashes. "They set me up. Trent Mallory was recording. Carter pulled me back." Harlan didn't ask for the phones. He didn't ask for the footage. He slid a form across the desk like it was already decided. "Carter," he said softly, "you have a history. You can take 3 days out of school suspension, or 1 day in school, and you sign that you accept responsibility for escalating the situation." 3 days meant 3 missed shifts. It meant his mom's meds getting stretched thin again. Carter picked up the pen. His hand shook. He signed. Eli's eyes flashed. "That's wrong." Harlan's voice stayed smooth. "Mr. Kane, my advice is simple. Choose your friends carefully." When they stepped back into the hallway, a wave of laughter hit them. Students were huddled over screens, whispering, pointing. Carter heard his name like a punch. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Once, twice, again. He didn't have to look. Trent had posted the clip. At his locker, Carter finally checked his screen. A shaky freeze frame. Carter's hands up, Trent falling, Eli smeared in gray-blue sludge in the background. A caption in all caps, Carter Knox drags freshman into locker room. Views climbed, comments stacked. People he didn't know were laughing at his name. Down the hall, Eli stood frozen, glitter drying on his face like bruises you couldn't wash off. Carter folded the suspension slip, stuffed it into his pocket, and felt the weight of it settle. Heavy, familiar. Hollow Creek hadn't met Eli Kane. It had met a story. Carter didn't sleep. He lay on top of his blanket listening to the house settle, listening to his mom cough in the next room, listening to his phone buzz every few minutes like it had a grudge. When the alarm finally went off, it felt like a joke. He washed his face in the bathroom sink and stared at his own eyes like he was trying to recognize who he'd become overnight. The video was everywhere, not just the school, local pages, group chats. People who had never said his name before were suddenly using it like it was entertainment. In the kitchen, his mom stood at the counter in a robe, moving slowly, careful with her breathing. The pill bottle sat open beside a glass of water. "You're up early," she said, like early mornings were still normal for them. "Got in school," Carter said. Her shoulders sagged a little, not dramatic, just a tired drop. Again. He hated that word. Again. "It's one day," he lied. "I'll be fine." She didn't argue. She glanced at his phone on the table when it lit up again. Carter flipped it over. "What happened?" she asked quietly. Carter's jaw tightened. "Some guys thought it'd be funny to mess with a new kid. And I got in the middle." His mom stared at the pill bottle like she could count their future in there. "You can't keep doing that, baby." Carter looked away. He didn't have an answer that wouldn't hurt. He grabbed a piece of toast, didn't taste it, and kissed her forehead on his way out. The cold air slapped him awake on the porch. As he walked down the street toward the bus stop, the town looked the same as always. Same cracked sidewalks, same quiet houses, same American flags and dead winter lawns. But it felt different now, like the whole place had tilted and Carter was the only one who noticed. At the stop, 2 freshmen were already there. They went silent when Carter approached. One of them glanced at his backpack, then at his face, and pulled his hood up like Carter was contagious. Carter didn't react. He'd learned a long time ago that reacting was what people wanted. The bus ride was worse. A few kids openly filmed him. A girl whispered, "That's him," like she was pointing out an animal at a zoo. Someone threw a folded paper ball that hit the back of his head and bounced into the aisle. He didn't turn around. The school came into view. Brick building, neat flagpole, clean windows that never showed what happened inside. The bus doors hissed open, and the moment Carter stepped onto the sidewalk, he heard it. A deep, rolling thunder that didn't belong to a school morning. It wasn't a truck. It wasn't a student car with a loud muffler. It was engines, plural, coming in like a wave. Heads turned, conversations died. Even the kids who loved attention shut up because this wasn't their kind of attention. From the far end of the parking lot, a line of motorcycles glided through the entrance in tight formation, not speeding, not showing off, just arriving like they owned the air. Behind them, a black pickup followed, and behind that, another. Carter stopped without meaning to. Everyone did. The bikes parked in a row right along the front curb where parents usually dropped kids off. Chrome flashed in the morning sun, leather jackets, patches, heavy boots hitting pavement like punctuation. One by one, riders swung their legs off and stood. Then the lead bike cut off, and the rider didn't rush. He took his time. He was tall, broad-shouldered, hair pulled back, beard trimmed short. He wore a black leather vest over a dark hoodie, and the back patch curved across his shoulders like a warning. Below it, in clean stitching, was a word that made even the teachers freeze at the doors. President. The biker president stepped down and looked at the school like he was taking inventory. For a second, Carter thought it might be about him. The video, the accusation. Like this was some weird consequence nobody explained. Then, The biker president's gaze moved past the crowd, past the noise, and landed on one person walking stiffly toward the entrance. Eli. Eli's hoodie was clean today, but his face was still off. His eyes were tired, red at the edges. He looked like he'd spent the night replaying the locker room over and over. When Eli saw the bikes, he stopped dead. The biker president didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply nodded, small, controlled, and Eli's shoulders loosened like someone had cut a rope around his chest. Carter watched that exchange and felt his stomach twist. So that's what Principal Harlan had recognized yesterday. Not just a name, a connection. The biker president took 2 steps forward, and the whole front walkway cleared without anyone asking it to. Teachers who usually barked at kids for running suddenly acted like they'd forgotten how to speak. A woman got out of the black pickup, not a biker, clean coat, hair neat, a folder tucked under her arm like a weapon made of paper. She walked right beside the president, matching his pace. A lawyer, Carter thought. This wasn't a spontaneous dad is mad situation. This was organized. From the edge of the lot, Trent Mallory appeared with Logan and Chase. Carter saw them clock the bikes and stiffen. Logan's laugh didn't come today. Chase's eyes tracked the president like a hunter recognizing a bigger predator. Trent tried to act casual, but his throat moved like he swallowed wrong. The biker president didn't look at Trent. Not once. He walked straight through the front doors. The woman followed. 2 more riders stayed outside and leaned against their bikes, arms crossed, scanning the crowd without moving their heads. It wasn't aggressive. It was worse than that. It was calm, like they were used to being obeyed. Carter forced himself to keep walking. He needed the in-school room. He needed to get through the day. He needed to stay invisible. But the air inside the school was electric. Teachers whispered in clusters. Kids stood at lockers pretending they weren't watching the office hallway like it was a reality show. Carter was halfway to the main office when he heard his name. Knox. He turned. Mr. Dillard, the attendance guy, stood near the counter, pale. Principal wants you. Now. Carter's heart dropped straight into his shoes. He looked past Dillard and saw the office door cracked open. Inside, he could hear low voices. One of them was Principal Harlan's, too high, too friendly. Another was deeper, controlled, with no panic in it at all. Carter swallowed. What for? Dillard's eyes flicked toward the hall like he didn't want anyone hearing him. Just go. Carter walked into the office. The waiting area felt smaller than usual, like the walls were listening. The secretary didn't make eye contact. Her hands shook as she typed. Dillard opened the door to Harlan's inner office and motioned Carter in. Carter stepped through and immediately felt it, pressure, like the room had a different gravity. Principal Harlan stood behind his desk, forcing a smile so hard it looked painful. Coach Brannigan was there too, arms folded, expression unreadable. The school resource officer, Officer Phelps, stood near the window, hand resting on his belt-like habit, and sitting in one of the leather chairs, legs spread slightly, hands resting on his knees, was the biker president. Up close, he looked older than Carter first thought, early 40s maybe. His eyes were sharp, but not wild, the kind of eyes that had seen fear and learned how to use it without raising his voice. The woman with the folder stood behind him, flipping a page calmly. Carter's mouth went dry. Principal Harlan clapped his hands once, too loud. Carter, come in, take a seat. Carter didn't sit. He couldn't tell if sitting was surrender. The biker president lifted his chin slightly, studying Carter like he was reading something written under his skin. Then he spoke. Carter Knox. Not a question. Carter's throat tightened. Yeah. Principal Harlan rushed in, voice syrupy. Carter, this is... Save it, the biker president said, still calm. Harlan went silent. Coach Brannigan's eyes widened a fraction. The biker president looked at Carter again. You were in the locker room yesterday. Carter's pulse hammered. I was. You put your body between my kid and 3 grown boys. My kid. The words hit Carter like a shove. Eli Kane wasn't just connected to him, he belonged to him. Carter stared, confused and careful. I just didn't want them to. I know what you wanted, the biker president said. I watched the full clip. Harlan's smile twitched. We have policies about phones. The woman with the folder finally spoke, voice clean and cold. Your policies aren't the issue, your negligence is. Officer Phelps shifted his weight, like he suddenly regretted being in the room. Coach Brannigan cleared his throat. Sir, with respect, the video shows Knox. The biker president didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look at Coach. Does it? Coach Brannigan stopped talking mid-sentence like his tongue had been unplugged. The woman opened the folder and slid a printout onto the desk, then another. Carter couldn't see the pages clearly, but he saw still frames. Angles the posted clip didn't show. The bench, the bucket. Chase's hand on Eli's shoulder, Trent holding his phone up like a director. Principal Harlan's face tightened. Where did you get those? The biker president's eyes stayed on Harlan. From the part you didn't ask for. Silence spread. Carter felt dizzy. All day yesterday, all night, he'd been bracing for punishment, for the world to crush him for doing one decent thing. Now, a biker president was sitting in the principal's office like he owned the chairs. The biker president turned to Carter. You signed a statement. Carter blinked. They told me? I know what they told you, the biker president said. His voice wasn't angry. It was worse. It was certain. They told you what they tell people in towns like this. Take the blame and it'll hurt less. Carter's hands curled, then unclenched. I needed to keep my job. The biker president's eyes narrowed slightly, not at Carter, at the system behind him. You got a job? Benny's Gas. The woman made a note without looking up, like that name mattered. Principal Harlan forced a laugh that died immediately. Now, let's be rational. Teenager pranks happen. We've handled it internally. Internally, the biker president repeated, meaning you suspended the kid who intervened. Harlan lifted both palms. Carter has a record. Carter flinched even though he expected it. That word, record, as if he'd robbed a bank instead of getting shoved around for being poor. The biker president leaned forward slightly. The leather creaked. What's his record, Harlan? Harlan hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Coach Brannigan tried to jump in again. Knox has been involved in fights. Involved, the biker president echoed, finally looking at the coach. You mean present when other people hit him? Coach Brannigan's face reddened. You don't know? I know enough, the biker president said. I know my kid walked into this school and got hunted in under 6 hours. I know you did nothing. Eli appeared in the doorway then, like he'd been standing outside, listening. His hands were in his hoodie pocket, shoulders tight. The biker president didn't soften when he saw him, but his voice shifted, just a degree. Eli. You okay? Eli nodded once, but his eyes flicked to Carter like he was checking if Carter was still there, still standing. Principal Harlan tried to regain control. Mr. Kane, we appreciate parental involvement, but bringing an entourage onto school property is inappropriate. The biker president stood. The room changed instantly. Even Officer Phelps straightened like he was bracing for impact. The biker president walked to the desk and placed 2 fingers on the suspension form Carter had signed, like it was dirty. You're going to void this, he said. Harlan swallowed. That's not. The woman with the folder stepped forward. It is. Or the district will be answering to more than a phone call. We have timestamps, witness statements, and video evidence of harassment, assault, and administrative retaliation. Coach Brannigan scoffed weakly. Retaliation? The woman turned her gaze on him. You ignored a student reporting an assault in real time. That is retaliation by omission. Coach opened his mouth, then shut it. Harlan's eyes darted to Officer Phelps like he wanted backup. Officer Phelps avoided his gaze. Carter watched it all like he was outside his own body. He wasn't used to adults folding. In Hollow Creek, adults didn't fold for kids like him. The biker president looked back at Carter. You got anything to say in here? Anything you want on record? Carter's throat tightened. 100 thoughts fought for space. If he spoke, he'd be making enemies. If he stayed silent, he'd stay alone. He glanced at Eli. Eli's face was tense, but there was gratitude there too. The kind that doesn't demand anything, just remembers. Carter breathed in. They filmed it, he said. They planned it. They wanted him to fight back so they could post it. Harlan snapped. That's enough? The biker president didn't move, but Harlan stopped anyway. Carter forced himself to keep going. And when I stopped it, they turned it on me. They knew you'd believe them. The words hung in the room. Principal Harlan's face went stiff, like Carter had just said something illegal. The biker president nodded once, like Carter had confirmed what he already suspected. Then he did something Carter didn't expect. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He placed it on the desk, then slid it toward Harlan. "What's that?" Harlan asked, voice thin. "A request," the biker president said, "for every disciplinary report tied to those 3 boys, Trent Mallory, Logan Beck, Chase Vickers, for the last 2 years, including anything you handled internally." Coach Brannigan stiffened at the names. Harlan's eyes widened. "That's confidential," the woman answered instantly. "Not when there's an active complaint and potential criminal conduct on campus." Officer Phelps shifted again, and Carter saw sweat at his temple. The biker president's voice stayed level. "And I want the hallway camera footage from yesterday, all of it, from first bell to dismissal." Harlan stared like he'd been asked to hand over his own spine. "Our cameras, sometimes they don't," the biker president said. Harlan's mouth opened. The biker president stepped closer, close enough that Harlan had to tilt his head up to meet his eyes. No shouting, no threats, just presence. "Here's what you're going to do," the biker president said. "You're going to stop treating this like a prank. You're going to stop sacrificing kids to keep your school looking clean. And you're going to start with him." He gestured toward Carter without looking away from Harlan. Carter's stomach tightened. He didn't want to be started with. Being noticed in Hollow Creek was how you got crushed. Harlan's voice came out small. "Mr. Kane, The biker president finally glanced toward the door. "Bring them in." One of the riders who'd been waiting outside the office stepped into the doorway like he'd been summoned by telepathy. He didn't speak. He simply moved aside. And that's when Carter saw Trent, Logan, and Chase standing in the hall, trying to look confident and failing. Trent's face was pale. Logan kept swallowing. Chase stared straight ahead like he'd decided emotions were weakness. Principal Harlan forced himself to stand tall again. "Boys, come in." Trent stepped forward first, chin lifted. "Principal Harlan, my dad said—" The biker president turned his head slowly toward Trent. Trent stopped talking like he'd hit an invisible wall. For the first time since Carter had known him, Trent Mallory didn't look like he owned the room. He looked like he'd just realized rooms could belong to other people too. The biker president's voice stayed calm, almost conversational. "Which one of you dumped the bucket?" Nobody answered. The silence wasn't courage. It was calculation. Carter felt it in his bones. This wasn't over. This was the moment right before someone tried to flip the board and change the game again. Trent's eyes darted to Carter, sharp and resentful, and Carter understood exactly what Trent was thinking. If the biker president was here for Eli, then Carter was just a problem. A loose end. And loose ends in towns like Hollow Creek didn't stay loose for long. Carter's phone buzzed in his pocket again. This time it wasn't a notification from school. It was his boss. "Benny's gas. Don't come in today. We'll talk later." Carter's chest tightened. While the biker president stared down the 3 boys in the office, Carter realized something horrible and simple. The town had already started punishing him, quietly, before he even knew the rules had changed. By 3rd period, Carter Knox had learned a new kind of silence. It wasn't the normal silence that followed him down hallways, the one built out of snickers and side eyes. This one was colder, calculated. The kind of silence you get when people don't want to be seen interacting with you because it might cost them something. In-school suspension sat in a long portable classroom behind the gym, a place the school pretended didn't exist. The walls were thin. The heater clicked like it was dying. A crooked motivational poster said, "Discipline is freedom," like it was mocking everyone inside. Mrs. Reddick ran it. She was old enough to remember when the town still had factories, still had jobs that didn't involve serving people richer than you. She didn't talk much. She just watched. Carter took the seat in the back. 2 other kids were already there, one asleep with his head on his arms, another tapping his foot like it was wired to a bomb. On the desk in front of Carter sat a packet of worksheets. He didn't touch them. He watched the window instead. From here you could see the front lot if you craned your head. You could see the bikes, still there, parked like they'd grown out of the curb. 2 riders still leaned against them, not moving. They didn't look bored. They looked like they were waiting for something specific to happen. Carter's phone vibrated again, and his stomach tightened before he even looked. Mom. He stared at the screen for 3 seconds, not because he didn't want to answer, but because answering meant the world could change with one sentence. He picked up. "Hey," he said quietly. His mom's voice was thin. "Baby, are you at school?" "Yeah, what's wrong?" There was a pause. He heard a cough, then the sound of her shifting in bed. "Pharmacy called," she said. "They said my refill is on hold." Carter's chest went tight. "On hold? Why?" "They said the doctor has to reapprove it, but the doctor's office says they already did." Carter's mind went straight to numbers. Days left, pills left. How long before her breathing got worse, before the hospital, before bills? He pictured her sitting up in bed trying to catch air while he stood behind a counter selling cigarettes to men who laughed at his name. "What pharmacy?" he asked, already knowing. "Town Care," she said. The one place in Hollow Creek that everyone used. The one place that could quietly decide who got to keep living comfortably and who didn't. "I'll call them," Carter said. His mom swallowed. "Carter." "Yeah?" "I saw the video." His throat closed. "Mom, it's not—" "I know," she said fast. "I know your face, I know your hands. You don't do that." Her belief hit him harder than any punch. It didn't make him feel better. It made him afraid. Because belief didn't protect you in Hollow Creek. It just gave you something to lose. "I'll handle the pharmacy," Carter said. "Just stay calm. Don't stress." She tried to laugh and it turned into a cough. "Okay?" He hung up and stared at his phone until the screen went dark. He could feel his heartbeat in his wrists. Retaliation, he thought. Not loud, not obvious. Just 1,000 small doors closing one by one until you had nowhere left to go. He tried Town Care during lunch. The line rang 3 times, then a receptionist answered with a voice that sounded bored on purpose. "Town Care Pharmacy, how can I help you?" "This is Carter Knox," he said. "I'm calling about Denise Knox. Her refill got put on hold." A pause. Keys clicking. "Date of birth?" He gave it. The keys stopped. Another pause, longer this time. Carter could almost hear the receptionist deciding what story she was allowed to tell. "It says here the prescription requires reauthorization," she said. "My mom's doctor says they already did it." "Then we'll need to wait," the receptionist said, voice flat. "How long?" "I can't give a time frame." Carter felt heat rise behind his eyes. He forced it down. "Can I talk to the pharmacist?" "I'll check." A muffled hand over the phone, a voice in the background, another pause. Then, "He's unavailable." "Unavailable?" Carter repeated. "It's a refill. My mom needs—" "Sir," the receptionist said, and her tone shifted just enough to be a warning. "There's nothing I can do." Carter gripped the phone tighter. "Then tell me who can." Silence for 1 beat, and then the line went dead. He stared at the screen, stunned. The call hadn't ended politely. It had been cut, like he wasn't worth the energy. Behind the gym, the bell rang. Students poured into the courtyard like they were released from a cage. Carter stayed by the portable, watching them move around him like water around a rock. Eli appeared near the fence line, walking alone. He'd changed his hoodie again, different color, same guarded posture. He kept his head down, but his eyes tracked everything. The way kids stood too close, the way teachers watched without intervening. When Eli reached the portable, he stopped and looked at Carter through the window. Mrs. Reddick's eyes narrowed, but she didn't move. Eli lifted a hand slightly, a silent question. "Can I?" Carter opened the door. The cold air rushed in. Eli stepped inside and closed it behind him. His presence changed the space. He didn't look like he belonged in in-school suspension, which made Carter wonder what he'd already had to do to survive other places. Mrs. Reddick looked up. "Mr. Kane, you're not assigned here." Eli's voice was calm. "I need to talk to him." "This is a disciplinary setting," she said. Eli glanced toward the window, toward the bikes, toward the 2 riders still watching. Then he looked back at Mrs. Reddick, and something in his gaze made her hesitate. "I won't be long," he said. Mrs. Reddick studied him for a moment, then looked at Carter like she was deciding how much trouble Carter could handle. Finally, she nodded once, slow. 5 minutes, she said. Eli sat in the empty chair beside Carter. The other kids in the room pretended not to listen, which meant they were listening with their whole bodies. Eli kept his voice low. "You okay?" Carter almost laughed. It would have come out ugly. "No." Eli's eyes flicked to Carter's phone. Something happened? Carter hesitated. He didn't talk about his mom, not to anyone, not in a place like this. But Eli was looking at him like he already knew what it was like to have a life that could collapse because someone felt petty. My mom's meds got held, Carter said quietly. Today. Eli's jaw tightened. Because of yesterday. Because of town politics, Carter corrected, bitterness slipping through. Because Trent Mallory's dad sits on the board, and half the people here owe him favors. Eli didn't argue. He just breathed out through his nose like he'd expected it. Listen, Eli said, leaning closer. I didn't want this to touch you. Carter gave him a look. Then why are you here? Eli's eyes hardened a fraction. Because it already touched you, and because it won't stop unless somebody cuts it off. Carter stared at him. Your dad, he said, and the word felt wrong in his mouth. He's the president, Eli said. Why is he really here? Eli's lips pressed together. For a second he looked younger. Then that look vanished. Because he promised my mom he'd keep me safe, Eli said. Carter blinked. Your mom? Eli's gaze dropped to the desk. She's gone. Carter's throat tightened. He didn't know what to say. Eli continued, voice controlled like it had been rehearsed in private. She died last spring. Car accident, but not an accident if you ask the people who knew her. Carter's skin prickled. What does that mean? Eli looked at him now, direct. It means my last name is trouble in certain places. It means people assume things about me before I open my mouth. It means when I transferred here, I told my dad I'd be fine. Because I wanted to be normal for once. Carter swallowed. And now? And now, Eli said. I walked into a locker room and learned normal isn't real. Mrs. Reddick's pen scratched on her clipboard, slow. She was pretending not to track every word, but Carter could tell she was measuring something. Eli's eyes flicked around the room, then back. You should know why they were so confident yesterday. Carter's jaw clenched. Because the principal always sides with them. Because Trent's family isn't just on the board, Eli said. Trent's uncle is the county commissioner. Logan's stepdad works for the sheriff's office, and Chase's mom runs the booster club money. Carter's stomach sank. It wasn't new information, but hearing it lined up like bullets made it feel heavier. Eli leaned in. They're not just bullies. They're a system. And systems don't like being embarrassed. Carter's fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. So your dad's going to scare them? Eli shook his head once. He's not here to scare them. Carter stared. Then what is he here for? Eli's voice dropped. To make them put it on paper. Carter didn't understand. Eli explained quickly, like he didn't have time. My dad doesn't do threats at schools, not anymore. He's making a formal complaint, bringing the lawyer, getting the footage, creating a record that the district can't bury. Carter felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief because someone finally cared about truth. Dread because truth still had to survive Hollow Creek. What about me? Carter asked before he could stop himself. Because they're already coming for me. Eli's gaze sharpened. How? Carter held up his phone. Boss told me not to come in. Eli's jaw set. Benny's gas? Yeah. Eli nodded once like he'd put another piece in place. They're hitting your money. And my mom's meds, Carter said, the words sharper now. Eli's eyes flashed, anger, quick and real. Okay. Carter almost snapped at him. Okay didn't fix anything. Okay didn't bring back hours or refill bottles. But Eli wasn't saying okay like a teenager. He was saying it like someone who was already moving. I'll tell my dad, Eli said. Carter's head jerked. No. Eli froze. Carter's voice came out low and strained. Don't. Please. Eli stared at him. Why? Because I don't want to owe him, Carter thought. Because owing someone like that means you belong to them. Because if your dad starts fixing my life, the town will decide I'm his problem, and then I'll never get free. Carter swallowed. Because it'll make it worse. Eli watched him, and for a second, Carter thought Eli might argue. Instead, Eli said quietly, It's already worse. Mrs. Reddick cleared her throat. Time. Eli leaned back, but his eyes stayed on Carter. I'm not asking you to join anything, he said. I'm not asking you to be anything. But you need to understand this, Carter. If they can break you, they can break anyone, and they'll do it just to prove they can. Carter held Eli's gaze. So what do you want from me? Eli's mouth tightened. The truth, Carter blinked. I already told, not in a room like this, Eli said. Not where they can edit it. I mean the truth with proof. Carter stared at him. What proof? Eli glanced toward the other kids in the room, toward the door, toward the window. His voice dropped even lower. The full footage exists, Eli said. Not just what Trent posted. Logan had his phone too, and Chase was standing by the lockers near the door. The angle he had would show everything. Carter's stomach twisted. Why would we ever get that? Eli's eyes narrowed. Because people like Chase keep trophies. Carter didn't like that sentence. It sounded too sure, too experienced. Eli stood. I have to go, he said, then paused. Carter, if they come at you today, don't take it alone. Carter didn't answer. He didn't trust his voice. Eli opened the door, cold air rushing in again, and stepped out. When he was gone, the portable felt smaller. Mrs. Reddick went back to her clipboard like she hadn't heard anything at all. Carter sat there until the bell rang again, staring at his math packet like numbers could save him. By the end of the day, the bikes were gone. That should have made the school feel normal again. Instead, it felt like the moment after a storm siren stops, when you realize the warning wasn't for the wind. It was for what the wind was hiding. Carter walked off campus toward the bus lot, trying to keep his head down. He almost made it. A patrol cruiser rolled up beside the sidewalk, matching his pace. The window was down. The air that came out smelled like coffee and authority. Carter Knox, a voice said. Carter's steps slowed. He kept his eyes forward. Yeah? Deputy Raines leaned out slightly, resting his forearm on the door. His uniform was crisp. His face was familiar. The kind of man you saw at town barbecues, at football games, smiling like he belonged everywhere. Raines didn't smile now. Where you headed? Raines asked. Home, Carter said. Raines nodded like he already knew that. Got a ride? I take the bus. Raines glanced toward the lot where kids were climbing aboard. Bus full today. Carter's stomach tightened. What do you want? Raines's eyes narrowed, just a little. Watch your tone. Carter forced himself to breathe. Sorry. Deputy, I'm trying to go home. Raines looked at him for a long second, then shifted, reaching into the cruiser and pulling out a small notepad like he was about to write something down. Got a report, Raines said casually, that you've been causing trouble again. Carter's throat went dry. A report from who? Raines lifted a brow. You saying you haven't? Carter's fists clenched in his pockets. I didn't do anything. Raines's gaze flicked to Carter's backpack. What you got in there? School stuff. Raines clicked his tongue softly. Mind if I take a look? Carter's heart slammed. He knew his rights in theory. In Hollow Creek, theory didn't matter. Kids were watching now. Some slowed, some lifted phones. Carter felt the familiar trap closing, the story already being written before he opened his mouth. He forced his voice steady. Do you have a reason? Raines's eyes hardened. I have a report. That's not a reason, Carter said, and immediately regretted it. Raines opened his cruiser door. The metal creaked. He stepped out, boots hitting pavement, body blocking Carter's path like a wall. You're getting mouthy, Raines said softly. That biker circus got you feeling protected? Carter's blood went cold. So it was connected. It was immediate. The town didn't wait. I'm not protected, Carter said. Raines leaned closer, voice low enough that only Carter could hear. Then act like it. Carter swallowed. His mouth tasted like metal. I just want to go home. Raines stared at him, then glanced past Carter toward the bus lot. You know what I think? Raines said. I think you like attention. I think you like being in the middle of things. Carter's jaw tightened. I didn't ask for any of this. Raines' eyes narrowed again, calculating. Then his expression shifted into something almost pleasant. Here's how this works, Raines said, still quiet. You stay out of Kane's business. You keep your head down. You stop trying to be a hero. And you might get to keep your little life. Carter's pulse thundered. Raines stepped back, then spoke louder, for the crowd. I'm going to let you go, he said, like he was doing Carter a favor. But if I hear your name again, next time won't be a conversation. He nodded toward the bus. Get out of here. Carter walked away, every muscle tight, refusing to run. He climbed onto the bus and took a seat near the back, staring out the window as the cruiser pulled away slow, satisfied. His phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't his mom. It was an email notification. Benny's gas. We're going in a different direction. Don't come back. Carter stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Different direction. Like he was a bad product on a shelf. He shut his eyes for 1 second, breathing in through his nose, out through his mouth, trying not to break in front of 30 people who'd love to watch it. When he opened his eyes, he saw Eli in the seat 2 rows ahead, turned halfway around, watching him like he'd felt the shift in the air. Eli's gaze dropped to Carter's phone, then back to Carter's face. Carter didn't nod, didn't shake his head. He just held Eli's eyes and let the truth sit there without words. Eli's jaw tightened, and in that moment, Carter knew something else with absolute clarity. The biker president's calm morning visit hadn't ended the war. It had started it. The next morning, Carter walked into school like a man walking into a courtroom he couldn't afford. No job, no extra money. A pharmacy that had effectively told him his mom could wait. A deputy's warning still pressed into his ribs like a bruise you couldn't see. And the worst part was how normal everyone acted. Kids laughed at lockers. Teachers sipped coffee. The announcements played like the building hadn't quietly decided who was allowed to breathe and who wasn't. Carter kept his head down and moved fast. He didn't see Trent, Logan, or Chase until second period, when he turned a corner and nearly slammed into them outside the vending machines. Trent was in the middle, leaning back against the wall like he owned it. Logan's phone was already in his hand, screen angled up. Chase stood slightly behind, eyes scanning the hallway like he was checking exits. Trent's smile came slow. Knox. Carter didn't stop. Move. Trent didn't move. Heard you got fired. Carter felt his stomach drop, then harden. Get out of my way. Logan laughed. Look at him. Thought he was somebody because he touched Kane's little puppy. Chase's eyes flicked, just once, toward the camera bubble in the ceiling above them, then back to Carter. Carter saw the glance and understood. They were choosing spots, choosing angles. Trent stepped closer, voice dropping. You know what you did yesterday? He said. You made my family get a phone call. Carter's throat tightened. Good. Trent's smile vanished. For a second, his face looked like something sharp, raw, ugly under the clean haircut. No, he said. Not good. Logan lifted his phone higher, already recording. Trent spoke louder, for the camera. Carter Knox threatening students in the hallway. Again. Carter's jaw clenched. He looked around. People slowed to watch. Nobody stepped in. He'd seen this script before. Trent leaned in, low again. You want to know what happens now? He whispered. We make you radioactive. You already lost your job. Next is your mom's clinic. Next is your bus. Next is you. Carter's blood went cold. You're the reason her prescription got held. Trent's eyes gleamed. Prove it. Carter stared at him, breathing shallow. Chase spoke for the first time, voice flat. Walk away, Knox. It almost sounded like advice. Carter forced himself to step sideways and slip past them. He didn't shove, didn't curse, didn't give them the clip they wanted. As he walked off, Logan called out, loud enough for the hall. Hey, Carter, ask Kane if his biker daddy can buy you another job. Laughter followed him like thrown rocks. Carter kept walking until the sound faded. His hands shook with the effort of not turning around. He made it to third period, slid into his seat, and tried to focus on the whiteboard while his brain ran numbers and fears like a machine. By lunch, he hadn't seen Eli at all. That worried him more than the bullying. Because Eli had been watching yesterday. Eli had understood instantly when Carter lost his job. Eli didn't strike Carter as someone who disappeared casually. When the bell rang for lunch, Carter avoided the cafeteria and headed for the back hallway where the vending machines were quieter and the cameras were fewer. He found Eli near the trophy case, alone, staring at a framed photo like it had insulted him. Eli heard Carter's footsteps and turned. His eyes were tired again, harder. You get the email? Eli asked. Carter swallowed. Yeah. Eli's jaw tightened. My dad called Benny. Carter's head snapped up. What? Eli shook his head once, frustrated. Not like that. He didn't threaten. He asked why you were terminated within 24 hours of a complaint. Benny denied everything, said you were late too much. Carter almost laughed. He'd covered shifts, stayed late, worked holidays. Benny had called him reliable right to his face. So what now? Carter asked, voice low. Eli didn't answer right away. His gaze kept flicking down the hallway like he was measuring how much time they had. Now, Eli said, they try to make you the problem officially. Carter's skin prickled. What does that mean? Eli stepped closer. It means they stop with rumors and start with something that gets you expelled. Or arrested. Carter stared. For what? Eli's eyes narrowed. Whatever they can stick. Carter's heart hammered. You said your dad was making it paper, getting footage. He is, Eli said, but paper takes time. They won't wait. As if the hallway itself had been listening, an announcement crackled over the intercom. Carter Knox, please report to the main office. Carter Knox to the main office. Every head in the corridor turned. Carter felt the floor shift under him. His mouth went dry. Eli's eyes hardened. That's it. Carter exhaled slowly. I didn't do anything. I know, Eli said. That's not the point. Carter started walking. Eli moved with him, but a teacher stepped into the hall and held a hand out. Eli, she said quickly, too quick. You were asked to go to guidance, now. Eli's gaze snapped to her. No, I wasn't. The teacher's smile tightened. Yes, you were. Eli looked at Carter like he was memorizing the next 10 seconds. Don't say anything without someone present, Eli said, voice low. Carter nodded once, even though he didn't know who someone was supposed to be for a kid like him. He walked to the office alone. The waiting area was packed with tension. The secretary didn't look up. The air smelled like toner and fear. Officer Phelps stood near the door. Deputy Raines stood beside him, hands on his belt, face neutral like he hadn't threatened Carter yesterday. Principal Harlan's door was closed. Dillard opened it and motioned Carter inside. Carter stepped through and immediately saw Trent, Logan, and Chase seated against the wall, all wearing expressions of bored innocence. Trent's eyes met Carter's, and he smiled. Carter's stomach dropped. Principal Harlan sat behind his desk, face drawn tight. The lawyer from yesterday wasn't here. The biker president wasn't here. The room felt different without them, like the town had waited until the big shadow left. Carter, Harlan said, voice formal. We have a serious matter. Carter forced his voice steady. What matter? Officer Phelps stepped forward and placed a clear plastic evidence bag on the desk. Inside it was a small folding knife, the kind you could buy at a gas station, the kind half the boys in town carried for fishing or bragging, the kind that became something else the moment it was in a bag labeled evidence. Carter's blood went cold. Harlan's voice came out measured like he'd practiced it. This was found in your locker. Carter stared at the bag like it was a hallucination. That's not mine. Deputy Raines watched him, eyes flat. Trent leaned back in his chair and sighed, loud enough to be heard. Told you, he muttered, like he'd been warning everyone all along. Carter's mouth went dry. You searched my locker? Officer Phelps nodded. We had cause. What cause? Carter snapped, then caught himself. What cause, sir? Harlan's lips tightened. A student reported feeling threatened. They said you showed them a weapon. Carter's hands shook. That's a lie. Harlan's gaze didn't flicker. Carter, with your history, my history's getting hit, Carter said, and the words came out sharper than he wanted. My history is you believing them. Raines stepped forward, voice calm. Watch your mouth. Carter's pulse thundered. He felt trapped. He could already see how this would go. The knife, the report, the suspension turning into expulsion, expulsion turning into charges, charges turning into his mom losing her doctor, losing her meds, losing everything. He forced himself to breathe. I want to see the locker search, Carter said. The camera footage. Officer Phelps's jaw tightened. We don't have cameras in the locker hallway. Carter looked at him. Then who opened it? Who was there? Phelps hesitated for half a second, and that half second felt like a confession. Harlan slid a paper across the desk. You can sign acknowledging possession, and we can handle it as a school matter. Carter stared at the paper. It looked like yesterday all over again, just worse. He didn't touch it. I didn't have a knife, Carter said, voice shaking. Someone put it there. Trent lifted a brow. fake surprised. "So now you're saying we framed you?" "Wild," Logan snickered. Chase didn't react at all. He just watched Carter like he was waiting for a specific mistake. Carter's eyes flicked to the evidence bag again, and then he saw it. A tiny smudge on the plastic near the seal, gray-blue, faint like dried paint or like sludge. His stomach twisted. The locker room sludge, the prank bucket. It wasn't just a knife, it was a signature. Carter's heart hammered as he looked up at Harlan. "Call Eli Kane," he said suddenly. "Right now." Harlan's eyes narrowed. "This has nothing to do with Mr. Kane." "It does," Carter said, "because this is retaliation, because the people who did that to him are doing this to me." Deputy Raines laughed once short. "You're digging deeper." Carter swallowed hard. "I want a parent or a lawyer present." Harlan leaned back, voice colder. "Your mother's at home. She is ill, and you don't have legal representation." Carter felt his face heat. It wasn't just facts. It was leverage. Then the office door opened. Not gently. It swung wide like someone had decided doors didn't get votes. Everyone turned. Eli stood in the doorway, breathing hard like he'd been running. Behind him, the woman with the folder, yesterday's lawyer, stepped in, calm as ice. And behind her, the biker president. He didn't look angry. He looked empty, which was worse. He took one glance at the evidence bag on the desk, then looked at Carter. Then he looked at Principal Harlan. "Explain," he said. Harlan's throat bobbed. "Mr. Kane, this is a separate—" The biker president walked forward until he was right at the desk. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply pointed at the knife bag. "You're trying to arrest the kid who protected my son," he said softly. Deputy Raines stepped forward, defensive. "We had a report," the lawyer spoke over him, voice sharp and clean. "And we have an active complaint on file that includes retaliation by staff. Any disciplinary action taken against Mr. Knox after that complaint is now discoverable." Harlan's face drained. "Discoverable?" The biker president's eyes stayed on Harlan. "You really want to do this?" Chase shifted for the first time. His foot tapped once, twice, nervous. Trent's smile cracked at the edges, just for a second. Eli stepped closer to Carter. His voice was low. "Don't speak. Let her." The lawyer opened her folder and slid a phone onto the desk, screen facing outward. "Yesterday," she said, "we requested camera footage and records. This morning, we received a tip from a student that a weapon would be found in Mr. Knox's locker. We arrived before your call ended." Harlan's eyes widened. "A tip from who?" The lawyer didn't answer. She tapped the phone screen. A video played. Not the locker room. The hallway outside the lockers, early morning, empty corridors. A figure approached, hood up, moving fast. The camera angle was high, like from a ceiling corner. The figure stopped at Carter's locker and slipped something inside. Carter's breath caught. "That's—" Eli's hand touched his arm, warning. "Don't speak." The figure turned slightly as they walked away. For one clear frame, the hood shifted. And the face underneath wasn't Carter's. It was Logan Beck's. The room went dead silent. Logan's knees started bouncing so fast the chair squeaked. Trent's eyes snapped to Logan like he'd just been betrayed. Chase stared at the floor, jaw tight. Deputy Raines's face hardened, but his eyes flicked toward Harlan like he was recalculating. The biker president didn't move. He just stared at Harlan and said softly, "Still a separate matter?" Harlan swallowed. This footage, our cameras," the lawyer cut him off. "You said you didn't have cameras in that hall, yet here we are. Either you lied, or someone is accessing feeds you're claiming don't exist." Officer Phelps looked like he wanted to disappear into the wall. The biker president finally turned his head toward Logan. His voice stayed calm. "Son," he said, not to Eli. He said it to Logan like it was a title Logan didn't deserve. "What'd you put in his locker?" Logan's mouth opened. No sound came out. Trent finally stood, panic flashing. This is edited." The lawyer's eyes snapped to him. "It's time-stamped and pulled from the district's archive server. Try again." Carter's vision blurred for a second, not from tears, from shock. Someone had actually brought proof. Someone had actually shown the truth in a room that never wanted it. Harlan's hands trembled as he reached for the phone, then pulled back like it was hot. Deputy Rains cleared his throat. We can handle this quietly. The biker president's eyes were flat. No. And when he said that one word, Carter felt it. Something in the room had crossed a line it couldn't uncross. Because if they couldn't bury this, then they would try something else, something bigger, something that didn't need a locker. The office didn't explode. It didn't turn into a shouting match. That would have been easier to understand. Instead, everything went quiet in the way a room goes quiet when the rules change, and nobody wants to be the first to move. Principal Harlan stared at the phone like it had just sentenced him. Officer Phelps avoided everyone's eyes. Deputy Rains kept his face steady, but his jaw worked like he was chewing anger. Logan's knee bounced hard enough to shake the chair. Trent stood rigid, color draining from his cheeks. Chase didn't look at anyone, just the carpet, like the floor might give him instructions. The biker president, Eli's dad, didn't look at the boys for long. He looked at the adults. "You're done," he said to Harlan. "Not as a threat, as a fact." Harlan's lips parted. No words came out. The lawyer reached forward and calmly took the evidence bag with the knife, turning it so the label faced her. "This is contaminated," she said. "Chain of custody is compromised and the origin is now disputed by video proof. If any report gets filed, it becomes falsification." Deputy Rains shifted. "Let's not get dramatic. Kids do stupid things." The biker president's eyes slid to him flat. "You threatened him yesterday." Rains blinked once. "Excuse me?" Eli's voice was low but clear. "You did. Right outside the bus lot." Rains's expression tightened like a mask being pulled. "That's an accusation." The lawyer looked at Carter for the first time since they walked in. "Did he?" Carter's throat felt like sandpaper. Every instinct screamed to stay quiet. Quiet had kept him alive this long, but quiet had also gotten his mom's meds held. "Yes," Carter said. "He did." The word landed heavier than Carter expected. Rains's eyes narrowed, sharp, promising. The biker president didn't react to the promise. He only nodded once like he'd logged it. The lawyer slid another page onto Harlan's desk. "You will void the disciplinary action against Mr. Knox immediately, in writing. You will place the 3 students under temporary removal pending investigation. And you will preserve all footage and records as requested. Any deletion after this moment is obstruction." Harlan's hands trembled as he reached for the paper. "This is, excessive." "It's standard," the lawyer said. "You're just not used to people demanding it." Coach Brannigan wasn't there today. No friendly muscle, no familiar voice to blame Carter, just the office's real hierarchy, paper, badges, and the fear of lawsuits. Harlan picked up his pen like it weighed a pound. He signed. Logan made a strangled noise, half protest, half panic. Trent's eyes cut to Logan with pure hatred now, like he'd realized Logan's stupidity had dragged them all into daylight. Chase's foot stopped tapping. He looked up, finally, and his gaze met Carter's for a split second. Not apology, not sympathy, calculation. The biker president turned slightly toward the boys. "Get out," he said. Trent opened his mouth. "My dad." The biker president didn't raise his voice. He only stepped closer by 1 pace. Trent shut his mouth and walked out. Logan followed, shoulders hunched. Chase went last, eyes down. Deputy Rains watched them leave, then looked at the biker president. "So what now? You gonna run this school?" "No," the biker president said. "You are, legally, like you're supposed to." Rains's lips pressed together. He looked like he wanted to say something uglier, but the lawyer was already watching him like she had a file open in her head. The biker president turned to Carter. Up close, the man didn't feel like a movie villain or a hero. He felt like someone who'd learned to keep his emotions locked down because emotions got people killed. "You did a brave thing," he said. Carter didn't answer. Compliments felt dangerous, like hooks. The man nodded as if he understood the silence. "My name is Mason Kane." Carter's stomach tightened. He'd never asked Eli his dad's name. He'd never wanted to know. Names made things real. Mason Kane glanced at the lawyer. "We're done here." The lawyer gathered her folder and the phone. "Mr. Knox," she said, voice softer now, "if they question you again, you do not speak without representation. Not a word." Carter swallowed. "I can't afford—" "You can't afford not to," she cut in. Someone is already trying to manufacture a case. That means they're desperate. Mason Kane held Carter's gaze. Walk with us. Carter hesitated. Every kid in the building would see him. Every teacher, every rumor machine. He imagined Trent's smile returning tomorrow with a new story. Knox joined the bikers. Knox is their pet now. Knox is protected. But staying alone had cost him everything in 48 hours. Carter stepped out of the office with them. The hallway looked normal. Lockers, posters, kids pretending not to stare. But the way eyes followed Mason Kane was different. Not curiosity, not admiration. Fear with a memory. Outside, the winter air hit Carter's face. The bikes were back at the curb, riders standing like statues. Students kept their distance without being told. Mason Kane stopped beside Carter, just out of earshot of everyone else. Eli stood on the other side, watching Carter's face like he was reading a storm. Mason's voice dropped. "You have a mother." Carter's spine stiffened. "Yeah." "She's sick." Carter's jaw clenched. I'm not prying," Mason said, calm. "I'm measuring what they can leverage." Carter hated how accurate that was. They held her prescription today. Mason's eyes narrowed, not at Carter, at the idea of it. Name of the pharmacy. Carter hesitated again. This was the moment where help turned into debt. Eli spoke quietly. Carter looked at him. Eli didn't push. He didn't guilt. He just waited. Carter exhaled through his nose. "Town care." Mason nodded once, already moving. "Get in the truck." Carter flinched. "No." Mason stopped, looked back. "No? I'm not." Carter struggled for the right words. "I'm not getting involved with whatever this is." Mason didn't bristle. He didn't get offended. He looked almost tired. "This isn't a clubhouse ride. This is a ride to keep your mother breathing." Carter's throat tightened. "You don't get to—" "I get to do what I can," Mason said, "legally." The word hit Carter harder than anything. Legally, like he was drawing a line on purpose. The lawyer stepped closer. "He's right. This isn't favors. It's documentation. If a pharmacy is withholding medication as retaliation, that's a problem for more than a principle." Carter stared at the ground, fighting himself. He saw his mom's hands shaking when she tried to twist open bottles. He saw her forcing herself to smile so he wouldn't panic. He whispered, "She'll hate this." Eli shook his head once. "She'll hate losing you more." Carter's eyes snapped up. Eli's face didn't soften. "They're not just punishing you. They're showing you what they can touch." Mason opened the passenger door of the black pickup. He didn't gesture dramatically. He just held it, waiting. Carter stood there while the whole school watched from windows and sidewalks. He felt their stories forming like smoke. Then he got in. The cab smelled like leather and cold coffee. The lawyer sat in the back with her folder, already dialing someone. Eli climbed in behind Carter, quiet. Mason started the engine without a word. As they pulled away from the curb, Carter watched the school shrink in the side mirror and felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Not safety, attention. And in Hollow Creek, attention was never free. Mason drove straight to town care. No sirens, no threats. Just the truck rolling into the lot like it belonged there. Inside, the pharmacy looked the same as it always did. Bright lights, cheap candy by the register, a line of people pretending not to listen to each other's business. The moment Mason Kane walked in, the air changed. Not because he yelled, not because he flashed anything. Because people recognized him. The receptionist behind the counter stiffened. Her eyes flicked to the back, then back to Mason's face, and her polite smile looked glued on. "Can I help you?" she asked. The lawyer stepped forward first. "Yes? We're here about Denise Knox's prescription hold. We would like the denial reason in writing, and we would like to know who initiated it." The receptionist blinked rapidly. One moment." She vanished through the back door like she'd been pulled. Carter stood near the candy rack, hands clenched, feeling exposed. Eli stayed close, not touching him, just present. A pharmacist came out a minute later, middle-aged, white coat, forced smile. "Mr. Kane," he said, voice tight. "I wasn't aware you—" Mason's voice stayed even. "You were aware you cut off a sick woman." The pharmacist's smile faltered. "There was an authorization issue." The lawyer lifted her phone. "We have the doctor's confirmation number and timestamp. Try again. The pharmacist swallowed. His eyes flicked to Carter, and Carter saw it. Recognition. Not of Carter as a person, Carter as a problem. Mason leaned forward slightly. Who called you? The pharmacist's throat bobbed. I can't. The lawyer's tone sharpened. You can, or we subpoena your call logs. Your choice. The pharmacist's face tightened. He looked past them, toward the security camera in the corner, like it might save him. Then his shoulders dropped a fraction. It was a request, he said quietly. From someone at the clinic. They said the patient was flagged for what? Carter snapped, then caught himself too late. Mason's head turned slightly, a warning to breathe. Carter forced his chest to move. The pharmacist swallowed. For potential misuse, that's what the note said. Carter's vision tunneled. His mom didn't misuse anything. She measured pills like they were gold because they were. The lawyer's eyes went cold. Name, the pharmacist hesitated. I'd have to check. Mason didn't raise his voice. Check. The pharmacist turned and walked back through the door, moving fast now. The receptionist avoided Carter's eyes like she was ashamed. Eli leaned close, voice barely audible. They're trying to make your mom look like a problem so nobody helps her. Carter swallowed hard. Why? Eli's answer was simple. Because you didn't shut up. The pharmacist returned, holding a printed slip in a small paper bag. He handed the bag to the lawyer without meeting Carter's eyes. The refill is processed, he said. And the note. It came from Hollow Creek Family Clinic. Initials on the request, RR. Carter's stomach dropped. RR? Mason's eyes narrowed. Raines. The word didn't need explaining. Deputy Raines. The same man who'd leaned out of a cruiser and told Carter to keep his little life. Carter stared at the paper bag like it was both relief and a warning. His hands shook when he took it. Mason didn't look triumphant. He looked focused. We go to your mother, he said. Carter nodded once, unable to speak. In the parking lot, the winter air felt sharper. The bag was warm in Carter's hands from the pharmacy lights. It felt like proof that someone had tried to squeeze his family and failed. This time. As Carter climbed back into the truck, he realized something that made his stomach twist again. This wasn't about a prank anymore. It was about control. And the town had just shown him how far it was willing to go. Carter expected the ride home to feel like rescue. It didn't. It felt like crossing a bridge with no way back. The paper bag sat on his lap, warm against his palms, and every bump in the road made it crinkle, like it was trying to remind him it was real, his mom's medication finally in his hands. Eli sat behind him, quiet. The lawyer, Ms. Sloan, made calls in a low voice, dropping names and timestamps like nails into wood. Mason Kane drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed forward, calm in a way that didn't leave room for arguments. When they pulled up to Carter's house, the street looked normal. Too normal. A couple of kids on bikes, a dog barking behind a fence, a neighbor's TV flickering blue through curtains, but Carter noticed the white sedan parked half a block down, engine running. Mason noticed it too. He didn't stare. He didn't react. He simply took a longer route around the block before stopping, like he was confirming what his instincts already told him. You got visitors? Mason asked. Carter swallowed. No. Mason killed the engine. Stay close. Carter stepped out first, holding the bag tight. The air smelled like cold leaves in someone's fireplace. He walked fast up the path. The front door was unlocked. It always was. His mom didn't like the feeling of being trapped in her own house. He pushed it open. Mom? No answer. The living room looked the same. Blanket on the couch, old magazines, a cup on the coffee table. But the kitchen chair was tipped slightly, like it had been bumped. Carter's chest tightened. He moved down the hallway. Mom, he called again, quieter this time. He found her in the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, hands gripping the mattress. She was pale, breathing shallow. Her eyes lifted to him, and relief flooded her face so fast it almost looked like pain. Carter, she whispered. I tried calling. I got it, he said quickly, stepping closer. He held up the bag like it was a trophy in a prayer. It's here. Her eyes filled. Thank God. Carter knelt in front of her, trying to keep his voice steady. Did anyone come by? His mom hesitated. Carter's stomach sank. Mom, she swallowed. A man, she said quietly. From the clinic. He said there was a concern. He asked questions. Carter's hands curled into fists. What man? I don't know. He had a badge clip. He wasn't friendly. Carter felt heat rise behind his eyes. Did he touch anything? Did he come in? She shook her head quickly. No, he stayed at the door. But he said if the prescription wasn't properly used, they could report it. Carter's throat tightened. That was a threat. His mom looked down, ashamed for being scared. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, Carter said, voice breaking despite him. I know. Footsteps sounded behind him. Carter turned and saw Mason Kane in the doorway, framed by the hall like a shadow that had chosen to be human. Eli stood beside him, Ms. Sloane behind them, already writing. Mason's gaze went to Carter's mom, took in her pallor, her breathing, and then shifted to Carter. Name of the clinic guy? Mason asked. Denise Knox shook her head. He didn't say. Mason nodded once like he'd expected that. He will. Miss Sloane stepped forward gently. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Just facts. Time of day, what he said, what he looked like. That's all. Denise Knox nodded, eyes glossy. Carter stood up slowly, bag still in his hand. He felt like his whole body was vibrating. Relief that his mom was okay, rage that someone had come to her door, fear that this was only the beginning. Mason's phone buzzed. He checked it, then his eyes sharpened. School, he said. Eli's head lifted. What? Mason looked at Ms. Sloane. They just posted something. Carter's stomach dropped. Who? Mason didn't answer. He held the phone out. On the screen was a new video, grainy, shaky, recorded from across the cafeteria. A caption in bold letters. Carter Knox threatens students. Now, bikers involved. The clip showed Carter in the vending machine hallway from earlier. Trent's voice loud, staged. It was cut tight to make Carter look like he'd been cornering them. It ended right before Carter stepped away, right before he refused to shove. A comment thread exploded beneath it. Lock him up. Always knew he was trash. Those biker freaks think they own the town. Kid should have been expelled last year. Carter's throat went dry. They're controlling the story. Eli's voice was low. They're trying to force the district to act. Ms. Sloane's eyes narrowed. And they're contaminating potential witnesses with public narrative. Mason scrolled once more, then stopped. His jaw tightened. They tagged the pep rally, he said. Carter blinked. What? Mason angled the screen. A school flyer had been reposted beneath the video. Today, pep rally, full house. Eli understood instantly. Carter saw it in his face. They're going to do something in public, Eli said. Mason's gaze stayed on the screen. They'll try to provoke a reaction. Carter's pulse thudded. From me, Ms. Sloane looked at him sharply. You do not go near them. Carter swallowed. It's at school. Then you stay visible, Mason said. You stay around adults, cameras, witnesses. Carter stared at him. Adults didn't help yesterday. Mason didn't flinch. Then we make it impossible for them not to. Denise Knox looked up, frightened. Carter, please. Carter turned to his mom and forced his voice soft. I'm not doing anything. I'm just going back to finish the day. His mom's lips trembled. They're going to hurt you. Carter wanted to say they already had. Instead, he said, I'll be careful. Mason nodded toward the door. We'll be there. Carter's head snapped up. No, if you show up, it'll what? Mason asked calmly. Make them hesitate? Carter's mouth opened, then closed. The truth was uglier. It would make the town hate him more. It would make him the kid who brought outsiders into their world. But the town had already sent a man to his mom's door. He didn't have the luxury of worrying about popularity. They drove back. This time they didn't park at the curb like earlier. Mason kept the truck in the visitor lot, calm and deliberate. Ms. Sloane walked in first, like she belonged there. Mason and Eli followed, with Carter between them. Inside, the halls were louder than usual. Pep rally day meant energy, screaming, face paint, teachers pretending they liked it. Carter felt every eye on him anyway. Whispers followed like a trail. Biker kid, knife kid, trouble. He caught a glimpse of Trent near the gym doors. Trent saw him and smiled, slow. Logan stood beside him, face tense. Chase leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching. Carter's skin prickled. He looked away and kept moving. Ms. Sloan spoke to the front office first, quiet but firm. Carter didn't hear everything, only fragments. Preservation, complaint, district liability. Principal Harlan's voice sounded strained, defensive. Then the bell rang. Students surged toward the gym. Carter tried to stay at the edge of the flow, but bodies pushed and pressed, sweeping him along. The air smelled like sweat and cheap cologne. The noise built into a roar. Inside the gym, bleachers were packed. The band played too loud. Lights were brighter than they needed to be. Carter sat low on the bottom row near an exit, as Ms. Sloan had instructed. Eli sat one row behind him. Mason stood at the far wall with two staff members and a coach, like he'd been invited even if no one said it out loud. The principal walked onto the floor with a microphone, voice cracking with forced school spirit. And then Carter saw the setup. A welcome segment, a spotlight, a chair placed at center court. The principal's voice boomed, "Let's give a big Hollow Creek welcome to our newest student." Students clapped, some genuinely, some as performance. Eli's posture stiffened. Carter's stomach tightened. "They're putting him on display." Eli's jaw set. "They're going to humiliate me." The principal gestured. A teacher approached Eli's section, smiling too hard. "Eli, come on down!" Eli didn't move. Around him, students started chanting his name. Not friendly, not cruel yet. Just loud. Logan appeared at the aisle nearby, phone already up, recording. Trent sat higher, watching like a director. Chase's gaze flicked toward the exit doors, then back to Eli. Carter's instincts screamed. Eli stood slowly, forced by the weight of 1,000 eyes. Carter grabbed his sleeve, low voice. "Don't." Eli looked down at Carter. "If I don't go, they'll say I'm scared." "And if you do?" Carter asked. Eli's eyes hardened. "Then we see what they planned." Eli stepped into the aisle. The gym erupted. As Eli walked down toward the court, Carter watched Logan's hand dip briefly into his pocket, then come back out. Too quick, too hidden. Carter's pulse spiked. Something was about to happen on that floor, under those lights, in front of everyone. And whatever it was meant to make sure the whole town believed Eli Kane and Carter Knox deserved what came next. Eli reached center court under the spotlight, and the noise in the gym turned into something sharper, like the crowd could smell blood and wanted permission to enjoy it. Principal Harlan stood with a microphone, smiling too hard. "Eli Kane," he boomed, "we're happy to have you here." Eli didn't smile back. He stood still, hands at his sides, eyes scanning the bleachers like he was counting exits. Carter stayed low near the door, every muscle locked. He couldn't see Mason clearly from here, but he could feel him, like a pressure line at the far wall. Harlan chuckled into the mic. "Now, every new student gets a little Hollow Creek tradition." A ripple of laughter, a few cheers. Carter saw Trent's head tilt, satisfied, like the line had been delivered on cue. A cart rolled out from the side, 2 student aides pushing it. On top was a big blue cooler and a stack of white T-shirts with the school mascot printed on them. Carter's stomach dropped. He could already picture it. Eli in a shirt, doused, humiliated, filmed from 10 angles, a new clip that would drown out everything from the office. Harlan waved a shirt. "Come on, Eli, put it on. Show the spirit." Eli didn't move. Harlan kept smiling. "Don't be shy." From the bleachers, someone yelled, "Do it!" And the chant picked up, ragged and excited. Eli's jaw clenched. He reached for the shirt, slow, not because he wanted it, but because refusing would become its own clip. Logan stood near the aisle with his phone up, recording. Carter saw Logan's other hand, down by his thigh, tight around something small and metallic. Carter's pulse spiked. Not a knife, too small, a can, aerosol. Carter had seen prank kids do it before. Spray deodorant into a flame for a quick fireball, or spray paint into someone's face. If Logan had pepper spray, or even just spray paint, the spotlight would catch it, and the crowd would see Eli freak out. They'd call him violent, dangerous, unstable, exactly what the town wanted. Eli pulled the shirt over his head. Harlan's voice rose, riding the crowd. "That's what I'm talking about!" The student aides lifted the cooler lid. Carter held his breath. One of the aides dipped a plastic cup in, then hesitated. His face tightened like he'd smelled something wrong. He glanced at Harlan, who leaned in and said something Carter couldn't hear. The aide swallowed and lifted the cup anyway. Eli looked down at it, eyes narrowing. Carter's mouth went dry. The liquid wasn't clear. It looked thick, darker than water. The aide stepped forward. Logan shifted his stance, phone still up, spray can hidden low. Trent leaned forward in the bleachers, watching like a man about to enjoy a show. Eli's shoulders tensed. Carter moved before he thought. He stood and pushed through the bottom row crowd, keeping his hands visible, forcing himself not to run. Running would make him look guilty. Running would give them a story. He reached the edge of the court just as the aide raised the cup over Eli's head. Carter's voice cut through the noise. "Stop!" For a heartbeat, the gym stuttered, not quiet, just confused. Harlan turned sharply, smile snapping. "Carter, sit down!" Carter didn't. He stepped closer, eyes on the cup. "That's not water." The aide froze, eyes wide. He looked relieved someone had said it. Harlan's voice tightened into authority. "This is a school function. Do not disrupt." Eli looked at Carter, then at the cup. His nostrils flared. "That's oil," Eli said quietly. "Or paint." Logan's hand twitched. Carter saw it. The tiny movement, the angle of Logan's wrist. Carter lunged, not at Logan's phone, not at his face, at the hand with the can. He grabbed Logan's wrist hard and yanked it up into the light. The can flashed silver. The crowd screamed like it was entertainment. Logan jerked back, panicked. The can slipped. It hit the gym floor, clattered, rolled, and stopped near a cheerleader's shoe. A label caught the spotlight. Industrial spray adhesive, not deodorant, not paint, glue. Carter's blood went ice cold. They weren't going to embarrass Eli. They were going to coat him in adhesive and dump something over him so it would stick. Feathers, glitter, maybe worse. Something that wouldn't wash out. Something that would live on video forever. Harlan's face went rigid. "What is this?" Logan's eyes went wild. "He grabbed me. He attacked me." Trent's voice rang from the bleachers. "Carter's doing it again." Phones rose like a forest. Carter released Logan's wrist and backed up, palms out. "He had glue. He was going to—" Harlan lifted the mic like a weapon. "Security." Deputy Raines appeared from the side door like he'd been waiting. He moved fast, hand already on his belt. 2 other men in school staff polos followed, eyes hard. Carter's chest tightened. Of course Raines was here. Of course. Raines pointed at Carter. "On the ground." Carter froze. "I didn't—" "On the ground," Raines barked. The gym's roar shifted. This wasn't a pep rally anymore. It was a spectacle. Carter looked toward Mason's side of the gym. He saw him, finally, pushing off the wall, moving with controlled speed. 2 riders were with him, not in vests now, just dark jackets. They were cutting through the edge of the crowd, but they were still far. Raines stepped in and grabbed Carter's arm, twisting it behind his back. Pain shot through Carter's shoulder. He hissed. Raines leaned in, low enough only Carter could hear. "Told you, next time won't be a conversation." Carter's teeth clenched. They had glue. Raines didn't care. He tightened the hold. "You like attention? Enjoy it." Eli stepped forward, voice sharp. He stopped a setup. "Look at the can." Harlan snapped into the mic. "Eli Kane, return to your seat." Eli didn't move. "That's adhesive. That's not school spirit." The aide with the cup finally spoke, trembling. "It's not water," he said into the chaos. "It smells like motor oil." The crowd reacted, some booing, some murmuring, confusion cracking the fun. Raines dragged Carter toward the side door. Carter's feet slid on the polished floor. He tried not to struggle. Struggling would become its own clip, but when he glanced back, he saw Trent step down from the bleachers and move toward the cart, quick, hidden, like he was trying to retrieve something before someone else did. Carter's heart slammed, because if Trent got rid of the cooler contents, the whole thing would turn into Carter attacking Logan and nothing else. Carter forced his voice loud. "Don't touch the cooler." Trent paused, just a fraction, enough for Mason Kane to see exactly where Trent was. Mason crossed the court with a speed that made the room go quiet in fear, not respect. He didn't run. He didn't have to. He reached the cart, planted a hand on it, and looked at the cooler like he was looking at a crime scene. Ms. Sloan arrived a breath later, phone already recording, her voice cutting through the gym. "Do not move that cart. This is evidence." Harlan's face went paper white. Deputy Raines kept dragging Carter anyway, toward the hallway. Carter's arm burned, his vision narrowed. At the side door, Raines shoved Carter against the wall, hard enough to rattle the exit sign. Carter gasped. Raines' voice was low, vicious. You just couldn't stay invisible. Carter's breath shook. They were going to do it. To Eli. Raines smiled without warmth. And now you're going to do time. He pulled out handcuffs. The click of metal sounded louder than the whole gym. Carter's stomach dropped through the floor. Because the second cuffs went on, it wouldn't matter what glue cans or coolers existed. In Hollow Creek, handcuffs were truth. And Raines was about to put truth on Carter's wrists in front of the entire school. Mason Kane's voice hit the hallway like a hammer. Take your hands off him. Raines paused, just long enough for Carter to feel hope, then crush it. Raines didn't turn. This is police business. Mason stepped into the doorway, filling it. His eyes were locked on the cuffs. Ms. Sloan appeared beside him, phone still up. Deputy Raines, you are detaining a minor without probable cause while evidence of a planned assault is on that gym floor. Raines finally looked at her. He put hands on a student. Ms. Sloan's voice stayed calm. And you're about to falsify context in real time. Raines's jaw worked. Back off. Mason took one slow step closer. You want to arrest someone? He said softly. Arrest the kid with the adhesive. Raines's eyes flicked past Mason toward the gym, where the cart sat untouched now, surrounded by staff and students frozen in uncertainty. For the first time, Raines looked uncertain too, not because he doubted Carter's guilt, because he realized there were cameras on him now. And then Raines made a decision Carter didn't expect. He snapped the cuffs shut anyway. Metal bit Carter's wrists. A shock of cold ran through him, and the hallway tilted. Raines leaned in, whispering, "Welcome to the record you keep denying." And Carter understood with sick clarity that this wasn't about a prank or glue, or even Eli. It was about making sure the town still had the power to put a kid like him in chains whenever it wanted. The cuffs didn't just hold Carter's wrists. They held the entire hallway. Students poured out of the gym in a messy wave, phones up, voices overlapping, half chanting, half panicking, everyone trying to be the first to narrate what they'd just seen. Teachers formed a shaky line near the doors, pretending it was crowd control when it was really fear management. Deputy Raines kept Carter pinned to the wall like a trophy. His grip was firm, practiced, and personal. Carter's wrists burned, the metal cut in just enough to keep him aware of every heartbeat. Ms. Sloan's phone stayed pointed at Raines. State your probable cause, she said, calm as a blade. Raines didn't look at her. Assault. Interference. Carter swallowed. I grabbed his wrist. He had the can. Shut up, Raines hissed low. Mason Kane moved closer, not fast, not threatening, just impossible to ignore. He looked past Raines to Carter's hands, then back to Raines's face. You're making a choice, Mason said softly, in a hallway full of cameras. Raines finally turned his eyes toward Mason, and Carter saw it, the tiniest flicker of doubt. Not moral doubt, career doubt, but Raines pushed through it. You don't run this county, Mason nodded once. No, but the state does. Principal Harlan appeared in the doorway, sweating through his collar, trying to look like he'd regained control. Everyone, please. This is being handled. Ms. Sloan snapped her gaze to him. Then handle the evidence in your gym. Preserve it. Now. Harlan's mouth opened, and nothing came out. A student aide rushed past, pale. Sir, the cooler. Someone said it smells like oil. Of course it does, Mrs. Sloan said, and her tone cut through the noise. And there's adhesive on the floor, and your student is in handcuffs. Raines started dragging Carter down the hall toward the office again. Carter stumbled, forced to keep his legs moving. As they passed the trophy case, Carter caught Eli's face in the crowd, tight, furious, but controlled. Eli wasn't yelling, he was watching, recording everything with his eyes. Eli stepped closer to Mason. He's taking him. Mason didn't move. Let him, he said quietly. He wants a scene. We give him a record. Eli's jaw clenched. A record can ruin him. Mrs. Sloan's voice stayed level. A record can also ruin Raines if it's fraudulent. They entered the main office like a storm moved through a doorway. The secretary looked close to tears. Officer Phelps stood up so fast his chair scraped. Raines shoved Carter into a chair near the wall and planted himself in front of him, blocking any easy angle for cameras. Too late. Ms. Sloan's phone was already up, and at least 3 students had filmed from the hall before the door closed. Harlan closed the door and forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Let's all take a breath. Mason didn't sit. Take the cuffs off. Rains folded his arms. He's detained. Ms. Sloan stepped closer, voice crisp. Detained for what specifically? You're alleging assault on Logan Beck? Rains nodded once. Witnesses saw it. Witnesses saw him preventing a planned assault, Ms. Sloan replied. And we have video evidence of Logan planting a knife. Your department is already compromised. Rains's face tightened. That video is time-stamped and archived, Ms. Sloan cut in. And now we have a gym floor with adhesive and an altered liquid in a cooler tied to the same group of boys. Harlan tried to interrupt. We haven't confirmed. Mason's eyes pinned him. Confirm it. Silence. Officer Phelps cleared his throat, weak. The cart is being secured. By who? Ms. Sloan asked. Phelps hesitated. By staff. Staff who already lied about cameras, she said. No, I want an outside chain of custody. Call the district safety office. Call state investigators. Now. Rains laughed once. You don't get to order that. Ms. Sloan's expression didn't change. I get to demand it in writing and file it within the hour, which means if you don't, you'll explain why under oath. Harlan looked like he might be sick. Rains leaned in toward Carter, voice low. You're going to admit you attacked him. It'll go easier. Carter's throat tightened. He looked at Ms. Sloan, remembered her warning, don't speak without representation, so he did the only thing he could. He went silent. Rains's eyes narrowed. Playing tough? Carter stared straight ahead, wrists burning, heart pounding. Eli stepped forward, voice controlled. Deputy, you're ignoring evidence. Rains finally looked at Eli, and his expression shifted into something like contempt. Stay out of it, kid. Eli didn't flinch. You showed up exactly when the prank started, like you knew. That landed. Even Harlan twitched. Rains's smile returned, thin. Pep rally duty. We keep kids safe. Safe, Mason repeated, quiet. While you cuff the one who stopped it? Rains turned on Mason. You think you can intimidate me? Mason's voice stayed flat. No, I think you intimidate yourself. That's why you need the cuffs. Rains's jaw worked. A knock hit the office door. Hard. Harlan jumped and opened it a crack. A coach spoke fast in his ear. Harlan's face drained further. What? Harlan whispered. The coach said something else. Harlan looked at Ms. Sloan. The cooler, is it oil? She asked. Harlan swallowed. It's mixed. There's something in it. It's not water. Ms. Sloan nodded once. Collect it, seal it, photograph it, and do not let anyone touch that cart without documentation. Rains scoffed, but his eyes flicked toward the door again. He was realizing the gym evidence was becoming bigger than Carter's wrists. Ms. Sloan stepped closer to Rains. Take the cuffs off. He's a minor. He's not a flight risk. And you have no articulated probable cause beyond someone said. Rains's voice sharpened. He grabbed a student. He prevented a coordinated assault, she said, and if you insist on holding him, you will read him his rights and contact his guardian, immediately. Harlan looked at Carter like he'd just remembered Carter had a mother. His mother is unwell, Harlan said quietly, as if that settled it. Ms. Sloan's eyes snapped. Then you should be careful how you leverage that. For a moment, Carter thought Rains might actually back down. Then, Rains made another choice. He pulled out a form from a folder and slapped it on the desk. Detention report. Assault and disorderly conduct. He'll spend the night in juvenile holding until a guardian can pick him up. Carter's stomach dropped. Holding. Night. His mom alone. Eli's face tightened like he'd been punched. Mason didn't move, but the air changed around him. You put him in a cell, Mason said softly, and you better be right. Rains's eyes were hard. I'm right enough. Ms. Sloan's voice turned colder. Then you won't mind that I'm calling the state attorney's office and requesting immediate intervention for potential misconduct. Rains smirked. Call whoever you want. Ms. Sloan didn't argue. She dialed right there, in front of everyone. Speaker off, voice low but fast. Carter sat still, wrists aching, trying not to imagine his mom waking up and not finding him. Then the office door opened again. Not a knock this time, just opened like someone had authority. A man stepped in wearing a plain jacket, no uniform, no school badge. He looked mid-40s, tired eyes, the kind of calm that comes from being called into messes for a living. Behind him was a woman with a tablet and a lanyard that read, District. Rains stiffened. Who the hell are you? The man held up an ID. State investigator. Received a call about a retaliation complaint and possible evidence tampering at a public school. Harlan's face went gray. Raines's expression tightened. This is local. The investigator looked at Carter's cuffs. Not anymore. Ms. Sloan finally ended her call and slid her phone into her pocket. Thank you for coming. The investigator's gaze moved to Mason. Recognition flashed. He knew who Mason was, but he didn't react to it. He reacted to the room. First, the investigator said, those cuffs come off. Then we talk about the cooler, the adhesive, and why a deputy is drafting juvenile detention paperwork in the middle of an active complaint. Raines's jaw worked. For a second, he looked like he might fight it. Then he reached down, unlocked the cuffs, and yanked them off Carter's wrists. Carter's hands tingled, pain blooming as circulation returned. He flexed his fingers, trying not to show how close he was to shaking apart. Eli exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. The investigator pointed at Harlan. Preserve everything. Phones, footage, records, disciplinary files. You delete anything and I'll treat it like obstruction. Harlan nodded too fast. The investigator turned to Raines. You, he said. Step outside with me. Raines forced a calm smile. Sure. But Carter saw the truth in the deputy's eyes as he walked out. This wasn't over. It had just moved to a level where Hollow Creek couldn't fully control the room anymore. And when control slips, people who crave it don't get quieter, they get desperate. By the time the state investigator finished with Deputy Raines, the school felt like it was holding its breath. Teachers moved differently, quieter, careful. Students still whispered, but the tone had shifted from entertainment to uncertainty. Nobody knew which story to believe anymore, and that made Hollow Creek restless. Carter sat in the nurse's office with ice wrapped around his wrists. The skin was red where the cuffs had bitten. It stung, but that wasn't the pain that bothered him. It was the thought of his mom alone in their house while men with badges made phone calls about her prescriptions. Eli stood near the door, arms folded, watching the hallway like he expected something to sprint out of it. Every few minutes his eyes flicked to Carter's hands, then back up, like he couldn't decide whether to be angry or relieved. Mason and Ms. Sloan were in the main office with the investigator, giving statements. Carter could hear muffled voices through the wall, adult words like liability and preservation and retaliation, words that sounded powerful but didn't guarantee safety. A nurse walked in, gentle. You can go home, Carter. They're releasing you for the day. Carter stood, ice pack slipping. I need to call my mom. The nurse nodded, already handing him the phone. His mom answered on the second ring, breathy. Carter? I'm okay, he said quickly. I'm coming home. A pause, a shaky inhale. They called me, she whispered. Carter's stomach dropped. Who? The clinic, she said. They said a deputy came by and warned them about drug misuse again. Then another call came right after, someone from the district, I think, asking if I was safe, if anyone came to my door. Carter closed his eyes. Did anyone come? Not today, she said, but Carter, I'm scared. I know, he whispered. Just lock the door. I'm on my way. He hung up and stared at the phone for a second, trying to steady his breathing. Eli watched him. They contacted her, Eli said. Carter nodded once. They're trying to make her the weak link. Eli's jaw tightened. Then we removed the link. Carter looked up. What does that mean? Eli hesitated, just a fraction, and Carter saw how much Eli already knew about this world. Not school politics, pressure, real pressure. My dad can move you both somewhere safe for a few days, Eli said quietly. Carter's chest tightened. No. Eli's eyes sharpened. Carter? No, Carter repeated. If we run, they win, and they'll still find a way to label me. Eli held his gaze, then nodded once, tight. Fine. Then we need proof that doesn't rely on the school. Carter frowned. What proof? Eli leaned closer, voice low. Chase. Carter's stomach turned. Chase Vickers? Eli's eyes were hard. He's the careful one. He didn't post, he didn't talk, he watched exits. That means he keeps receipts. Carter remembered Eli's earlier words. People like Chase keep trophies. You think he recorded the locker room, Carter said. And the pep rally set up, Eli replied, or at least pieces, enough to protect himself if Trent turns on him. Carter stared at him. How do we get it? Eli's answer was immediate. We don't ask at school. Carter's pulse picked up. Where then? Eli glanced toward the window, toward the parking lot. After. Carter followed his gaze and saw the white sedan again, half a block down, engine running. His blood went cold. They're watching, Carter whispered. Eli nodded once. That's why we can't go straight home. Not yet. Carter's instinct screamed to run to his mom anyway, but Eli was right. If they were watching him, they'd learn where he lived, who came and went, when his mom was alone. They'd already tried to squeeze her through the clinic. Carter swallowed. Mason won't like this. Eli's mouth tightened. Mason doesn't have to like it, he just has to understand. A knock hit the nurse's door. Ms. Sloan stepped in, expression calm but urgent. Carter, we're leaving, now. Behind her, Mason stood in the hall, eyes scanning, already reading the building like a map. Carter stood. There's a car outside, white sedan. Mason's gaze sharpened. I saw it. Ms. Sloan's voice stayed even. We're not going to your house first. We're going to document the surveillance. Carter's throat tightened. My mom's at home. Mason met his eyes. We'll get to her. Smart first. Fast second. They moved as a group, Mason leading, Ms. Sloan beside him, Carter and Eli in the middle. No patches, no show, just intent. Outside, the air was colder than before, wind cutting through jackets. Students lingered on sidewalks pretending not to stare. Mason didn't walk toward the truck immediately. He angled toward the edge of the lot, using other cars as cover, like he'd done it 100 times. The white sedan sat at the curb, engine running. When it noticed movement, it started rolling. Mason lifted his phone and began recording, steady hand. The sedan turned too fast, like it wanted to escape the camera. As it passed, Mason zoomed in on the rear plate. The driver's face stayed hidden behind sunglasses. But Carter saw the passenger. Deputy Raines. Even out of uniform, Carter recognized him instantly. The jaw, the posture, the way he sat like he owned the air. Raines looked directly at Carter through the glass and smiled. The sedan turned the corner and disappeared. Eli's face went tight. He's not done. Mason stopped recording and sent the clip to Ms. Sloan without a word. Then he turned to Carter. Now, Mason said, we go to your mother. They drove in the black pickup, taking a different route. 2 turns that made no sense unless you were checking tails. Carter watched the mirrors the whole time, heart hammering. When they reached Carter Street, Mason didn't pull into the driveway. He stopped a house down. Why? Carter whispered. Mason nodded at a dark SUV parked across the way. Tinted windows, engine off. Carter's stomach dropped. That wasn't there this morning. Ms. Sloan's voice was controlled. That's not random. Eli's hand hovered near the door handle, ready. We're being boxed. Mason exhaled once, slow. Stay in the truck. He got out alone. He didn't approach the SUV aggressively. He walked toward it like a man going to ask directions. Calm, measured, no sudden moves. The SUV's driver door cracked open. A man stepped out, big, wearing a county jacket. Not Raines. Another deputy Carter had seen at football games. Deputy Halverson. Halverson lifted his hands like he was harmless. Mason. So they knew each other. Mason stopped at a safe distance. Halverson. Halverson glanced toward Carter's house. We got a welfare call, he said loudly enough for the street to hear. Sick woman. Reports of intimidation. Carter's chest tightened. They were flipping it, making it look like Carter's mom needed saving from Mason, from Eli, from bikers. Ms. Sloan whispered, They're trying to justify entry. Mason's voice stayed calm. You don't have a warrant. Halverson smiled. Don't need one for welfare. Mason nodded once. Then you'll do it with a district representative on speaker and my attorney recording. Halverson's smile faltered slightly. Mason pulled his phone up, turned on video, and spoke clearly. This is Mason Kane. Deputy Halverson is attempting a welfare entry at Denise Knox's residence without a warrant. Time is... Halverson's jaw tightened. Come on, Mason. Don't make it. Too late, Mason said. Inside the truck, Carter's hands shook. My mom, he whispered. She's inside. Eli's voice was low, intense. We're going in, with cameras. Mrs. Sloan nodded. Yes, but controlled. No sudden moves. They got out together. Carter moved fast up the path, but Ms. Sloane kept pace at his shoulder, her phone already recording. Carter knocked once, then pushed the door open. "Mom," Denise Knox appeared in the hallway, wide-eyed, breath shallow. "Carter, what's happening?" Carter rushed to her, lowering his voice. "Don't panic, just stay behind me." Behind them, Mason and Halverson entered the yard line of sight with each other, two men on opposite sides of a rulebook. Halverson called out, "Ma'am? Denise Knox? We received a call. Are you safe?" Denise's eyes darted between Carter, Eli, Mason, and the deputy outside. Her voice trembled. I'm safe." Halverson stepped closer to the porch. "We need to check inside." Ms. Sloane raised her phone higher. "State your legal basis." Halverson's smile returned, brittle. "Welfare check. Anonymous caller." Mason's voice stayed even. "Anonymous caller from Deputy Rains?" Halverson's eyes flashed. "Watch it." Eli's voice was cold. "You were outside my school today with him." Halverson's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. Denise Knox suddenly coughed, hard, doubling slightly. Carter grabbed her elbow, panic flaring. Halverson's eyes latched onto that, satisfied. "See? She's unwell. We need to make sure she's not being pressured." Ms. Sloane stepped forward, voice sharp. "You are not entering this home without consent, and she is stating she is safe." Denise forced herself upright, breathing shallow. "I'm safe," she repeated, louder, like she was talking to the whole town. "I want you to leave." Halverson hesitated. Then a voice came from the street, casual and loud. "Everything okay here?" Carter turned and saw Trent Mallory's father standing near the sidewalk, hands in his coat pockets like he'd just happened to be walking by. He smiled at Denise like he cared. Carter's blood went cold. This wasn't a welfare check. It was a staged scene, deputy at the porch, powerful dad as concerned citizen, cameras ready somewhere Carter couldn't see. They weren't trying to arrest Carter anymore. They were trying to make him look like the threat to his own mother. And as Carter realized that, a car door slammed down the street. The white sedan from earlier rolled into view, slow, deliberate. Deputy Rains stepped out, smiling like he'd arrived for the punchline. Deputy Rains walked up the sidewalk like he was showing up to a neighborhood barbecue, not a confrontation outside a sick woman's house. No uniform, no urgency. Just that same calm smile that said he'd already decided how this story would end. Trent Mallory's father, Councilman Mallory, stood a few steps behind him, hands in his pockets, watching with the expression of a man observing an investment. Halverson stayed near the porch steps, body angled so he could move either way fast. Denise Knox stood in the hallway, breathing shallow, eyes wide. Carter kept one arm behind her like a shield, the other hand clenched so tight his nails bit skin. Ms. Sloane's phone was up, recording everything. "Deputy Rains," she said, voice clipped. "State your purpose here." Rains looked at the phone and smiled wider. "Good," he said. "Record. Saves me paperwork." Eli's jaw tightened. "You're stalking him." Rains tilted his head at Eli as if amused. "Kid, you don't know what stalking is." Mason Kane stepped forward just enough to be seen, keeping his body between Carter's porch and the deputy's line of approach. His voice stayed level. "You already tried to fabricate a weapon in a locker. Then you tried to cuff him in front of witnesses. Now you're here, at his mother's home, with a councilman." Councilman Mallory sighed, loud and performative. "Mason, don't turn everything into a conspiracy. I'm a concerned citizen." Carter felt a hot flash of rage. Concerned. Like his family was a charity case. Denise coughed again, hard. Carter tightened his hold on her elbow. Rains's eyes locked onto the cough like it was the only thing he'd been waiting for. "Ma'am," he called, voice sweet, "are you okay? Are you being pressured to say you're safe?" Denise's lips trembled. "I'm safe," she said. "I want you to leave." Rains took another step closer. "We can't leave until we're sure." Ms. Sloane raised her voice. "She has stated she is safe and has refused entry. You do not have a warrant." Halverson's smile returned, brittle. "Welfare checks don't require. They require an objectively reasonable basis," Ms. Sloane snapped, "not a political performance." Councilman Mallory's eyes cooled. "Watch your words, ma'am." "Ms." Sloane didn't blink. "Try to intimidate me on camera, please." Rains chuckled like it was a joke. Then his tone shifted, still calm, but sharper. "Carter Knox," he said, looking directly at Carter, "step off the porch and talk to me." Carter's heart slammed. No. Raines's smile didn't move. You don't get to refuse a conversation with law enforcement, Mason's voice cut in. You do when it's a fishing expedition. Raines stared at Mason, then glanced toward the street. Carter followed his gaze and saw it. 2 more cars down the block, parked with engines running. Not random, positioned, boxed. Eli whispered, barely audible. They planned an extraction. Carter's mouth went dry. If Raines could pull him off the porch, make him react, make him look aggressive, the phones would catch it. The councilman would witness, Halverson would intervene, and suddenly it wasn't a welfare check. It was an arrest justified by resisting. Ms. Sloan stepped forward, still filming. Deputy Raines, you are not speaking to a minor without counsel. Leave the property. Raines ignored her. Carter, 1 step. Carter didn't move. Raines's smile faded for the first time. Fine. He lifted his hand, not to draw a weapon, just to gesture. Halverson shifted his stance and started up the steps. Mason moved too, quick but controlled, blocking the path. Stop, Mason said. Halverson held his hands out. Don't do this, Councilman Mallory called out, voice loud enough for neighbors to hear. Mason Kane threatening deputies on a residential street. Someone should call this in. There it was. The script. Ms. Sloan's voice sharpened. This is harassment. I'm calling. Raines cut her off. Already called. He nodded toward the end of the street. A new vehicle rolled into view. Dark, unmarked, but official in the way it moved. It parked with purpose, not hesitation. A man stepped out wearing a plain jacket and an ID clipped to his belt. The state investigator. He approached fast, eyes scanning the scene, taking in the deputies, the councilman, the porch, the sick woman. Raines's smile returned, smaller now. Investigator, he said, as if greeting a colleague. The investigator's gaze went to Ms. Sloan's phone, then to Mason's, then to Carter's mom, pale and trembling in the doorway. What is this? The investigator asked, voice flat. Halverson spoke first. Welfare check. Councilman Mallory added smoothly. We're just making sure a vulnerable woman isn't being intimidated by her son? The investigator cut in, looking directly at Denise. Denise swallowed, voice shaking. I'm safe, she said again. I asked them to leave. The investigator turned to Raines. Then you leave. Raines lifted his brows. With respect. Now, the investigator said. Raines's jaw tightened. We have concerns about medication misuse. It's in the report. Ms. Sloan's voice snapped. A report initiated by RR. That's you. Councilman Mallory's smile thinned. This is inappropriate to discuss publicly. The investigator's eyes sharpened. It's inappropriate to stage a welfare check with a councilman present. Silence fell like a hammer. Halverson shifted, suddenly less confident. Raines held his face steady, but his eyes were angry now, angry that the scene had been interrupted by someone with higher authority. The investigator stepped closer to the porch, addressing Denise directly. Ma'am, do you consent to any entry or search? Denise shook her head quickly. No. Do you feel threatened by anyone in your home? He asked. Denise glanced at Carter, then Mason, then Eli. Her voice steadied just a fraction. No. The investigator turned back to Raines. You're done. Raines's smile came back cold. Sure. He backed down the steps, slow, making sure the cameras saw him comply. Halverson followed. Councilman Mallory stayed a beat longer, studying Mason like he was memorizing him. Then he looked at Carter and offered a soft, public smile. Get your family help, he said, like advice. Then he walked away. Raines paused near the curb and looked back up the street, directly at Carter. He didn't smile this time. He mouthed something without sound. Carter didn't need to hear it to understand. This isn't over. The investigator stayed, turning to Ms. Sloan. I need copies of all footage. Now. Ms. Sloan nodded. Already uploading. Mason looked at Carter, voice low. You see what they tried to do? Carter swallowed. Make me the threat. Mason nodded. And they'll keep trying until they can't. Eli's eyes were hard. Then we make sure they can't. Carter's mom coughed again, and Carter felt a spike of panic. He turned to her. Sit down, he whispered. Please. Denise nodded, exhausted. Carter guided her back inside, heart pounding. As soon as the door shut, Ms. Sloan's voice dropped. They're escalating. If they can't get Carter, they'll go after the easiest target. Carter looked at his mom's trembling hands and felt cold settle in his gut. "The easiest target is her," he said. Eli's voice was tight. "Or me." Mason stared at the street through the window, eyes narrowed. "No," he said softly. "They won't pick you. Not directly." Carter turned. "What do you mean?" Mason's jaw tightened. "They'll pick the one thing you'll break rules for." Carter's breath caught. Eli's eyes widened slightly, like he understood at the same time. "The new plan," Mason said, voice low, "isn't to arrest you." He looked at Carter. "It's to make you chase someone." And outside, down the block, a motorcycle engine revved once, sharp, unnatural, like a signal. Carter's phone buzzed in his pocket. Unknown number, one text, "Your friend's got 10 minutes." Carter stared at the text until the letters stopped looking like letters and started looking like a trap. "Your friend's got 10 minutes. His throat went dry. "Eli," he said, voice low. Eli was already leaning in, reading over Carter's shoulder. His face didn't change much, just tightened, like a lock clicking into place. "That's not about you," Carter whispered. Eli shook his head once. "It's about you. Through me." Miss Sloane stepped closer, phone still in her hand. "Do not respond," she said instantly. "We treat this as a threat. We document. We escalate to state." Mason cut in, calm and brutal. "They're trying to pull Carter away from the house." Denise Knox coughed from the couch, exhausted. Carter's eyes flicked to her and his chest clenched. He couldn't leave her. Not now. Not when deputies had just been on the porch. Eli's phone buzzed, one vibration, then another. Eli looked down, and the color drained from his face. He didn't speak for a second. Then he turned the screen toward Mason. A photo, a dim image, shot in motion, a gloved hand gripping the back of a hoodie, Eli's hoodie, yanking him forward. The angle was wrong, the lighting bad, but the message was clear. Then a second photo came in, a close-up of Eli's school ID card on a dirty concrete floor. Then another text. 10 minutes. Come alone. Carter's stomach flipped. "This is insane," he said, voice shaking. "We're inside. They can't." "They can," Mason said. "Not from here, from before, from school, from the crowd. They had eyes on you all day." Ms. Sloane's voice sharpened. "We call the investigator. Now. This is kidnapping." Eli swallowed, forcing his voice steady. "If we call, they hurt him." "Or they hurt him anyway," Ms. Sloane snapped. "This is coercion." Mason held up a hand, quieting the room without raising his voice. He looked at Eli. "They didn't grab you." Eli blinked. "What?" Mason's eyes were sharp. "They didn't grab you. They grabbed someone as your friend. Who's with you most publicly right now?" Eli's face tightened. "Carter." Mason nodded once. "So, your friend could be Carter, or it could be a lie to make Carter run." Carter's heart hammered. "Then why send Eli the photo?" Eli's voice was tight. "Because they know I'll react." Ms. Sloane stepped closer, tapping her phone screen fast. "I'm looping in the state investigator and requesting immediate—" Mason didn't stop her, but his gaze stayed on Eli. "Where did the message come from?" Eli checked the number. Unknown. No caller ID. Burner. Mason's jaw tightened. "Okay, no one goes alone. No one goes loud. We do this the clean way." Eli's eyes flashed. "There is no clean way." Mason's voice stayed level. "There is if we control the variables." Carter looked from Mason to his mom. Denise watched them with fear, her hand trembling on the blanket. Carter swallowed. "I'm not leaving her." Mason nodded. "You're not. Eli's not. Ms. Sloane stays with Denise. 2 of my guys stay outside. We create a perimeter." Eli's eyes widened. "Perimeter for what? We don't even know where—" Mason held up Eli's phone. "They want a meeting location. It'll be somewhere they think they can control. Abandoned lot, service road, old mill. They'll pick a place with 1 entry and 1 exit." Ms. Sloane looked up. "You're guessing." "I'm reading them," Mason said. Then he looked at Carter. "Did the text give any location?" Carter checked his phone again. Nothing else. Eli's phone buzzed a new message. A pin drop location. Old River Yard, back gate, 9 minutes. Carter's stomach tightened. Old River Yard was a dead industrial spot outside town. Rusted fencing, gravel, half-collapsed warehouse. Everyone used it as a shortcut. No cameras, no lights. Eli's voice went flat. "They picked the dark. Mason nodded once. We go. Carter's mouth opened. No, we call the investigator. Ms. Sloan already had her phone at her ear. He's on his way, she said, covering the mic, but he's not teleporting. Eli's jaw clenched. 9 minutes, Denise Knox whispered. Carter, please don't. Carter turned to his mom, forcing calm into his voice. I won't do anything stupid, he lied. Mason grabbed keys off the counter. Sloan, stay here. Keep recording. Doors locked. If anyone approaches, call 911 and the investigator simultaneously. Ms. Sloan nodded, face tight. I'm not letting you do something reckless. Mason didn't react. Then don't. Let me. Eli moved toward the door. Carter caught his sleeve. If this is a trap, it is, Eli said, but if we don't go, someone gets hurt. Or we get hurt, Carter shot back. Eli's eyes hardened. Then we don't go like victims. Mason opened the door. Cold air flooded in. 2 riders were already outside, waiting, phones out, scanning the street. They moved fast. No sirens, no convoy, no show. Just the black pickup and a second vehicle trailing, lights off. Carter's hands shook as he buckled in. He stared at the dashboard clock like he could slow it down by hating it. Mason drove like a man who knew every ditch and blind turn. He didn't speed recklessly. He drove efficiently, taking side streets, doubling back once, checking mirrors. Eli stared out the window, jaw locked, phone in his fist. You sure it's Old River Yard? Mason asked. Eli showed him the pin. Yeah, Mason nodded. Okay, when we get close, we don't drive straight in. We stop short. We listen. Carter's pulse thundered. What if someone's actually there? Mason's voice stayed calm. Then we confirm before we step. They reached the outskirts. The streetlights thinned. Trees crowded the road. The river smell came in, mud and cold metal. Old River Yard appeared ahead. Chain-link fence, back gate half crooked, a rusted sign that used to mean jobs and now meant nothing. Mason killed the headlights 50 yards out and rolled to a stop behind a line of dead shrubs. Silence, no engines, no voices. Then, faint, an engine rev inside the yard. One short burst, like the signal Carter heard back on his street. Mason's eyes narrowed. They're here. Eli leaned forward. We go. Mason grabbed Eli's shoulder, firm. Not yet. He pointed through the windshield. A figure stood near the back gate, half hidden by darkness, hood up. Hands bound behind his back. Carter's chest tightened. The figure lifted his head. Even in dim light, Carter recognized the shape of his face. Not Eli. The kid from in-school suspension, the one who slept with his head down, the one Carter barely knew. Carter's blood went cold. They hadn't taken Eli. They'd taken a random kid, a prop, a sacrifice. Eli's voice shook with fury. They're using him. Mason's jaw tightened. And if we rush in, they'll use him harder. Carter's breath came fast. We have to. A spotlight snapped on from the warehouse roof, blinding white, washing the yard in harsh light. Carter flinched, eyes burning. A voice boomed from somewhere above, amplified through a cheap speaker. Welcome, hero! Carter's stomach dropped. Because the voice wasn't Trent's, it was Councilman Mallory's, smooth, confident, practiced. Step out, Carter Knox, the voice continued. Alone, hands up, let's show the town what you really are. And at the edge of the light, Carter saw them, shapes moving behind stacked pallets, silhouettes with phones, and one familiar posture leaning against a post like he owned the scene. Deputy Raines, watching, waiting, smiling. Carter's lungs forgot how to work for a second. The kid at the gate, wrists bound, hoodie pulled tight, was shaking so hard his knees kept dipping. The spotlight made him look smaller than he was, like the light itself was crushing him. Councilman Mallory's voice rolled out again, smug and smooth. Come on, you wanted to be a hero at school. Here's your chance. Walk in. Take responsibility. No bikers, no lawyers. Eli's face was white-hot with rage. He's going to hurt him. Mason didn't blink. He wants Carter to step into that light. Carter's hands were shaking on his knees. His mind raced through the script they were trying to write. Carter rushes in, someone falls, someone screams, and suddenly the headline is Carter Knox attacks again, this time off campus with a hostage, with biker involvement. A perfect ending for the town. The kid at the gate lifted his head and tried to speak. No sound came out. Tape covered his mouth. Carter's throat tightened. That's on me. No, Mason said. That's on them. Eli leaned forward like he'd launch out the door. Mason held him back with a single hand. Listen, Mason said, voice low. They're recording from the pallets. Mallory's got the speaker. Raines is there to witness and to make sure the report reads the way they want. Carter stared through the windshield, eyes burning from the spotlight. So what do we do? Mason's gaze flicked to the second vehicle behind them. One of his guys had already slid out into the brush, phone up, filming. Another was moving wide, slow, staying invisible. We don't give them a brawl, Mason said. We give them a collapse. Councilman Mallory's voice rose. 5 minutes, Carter. Then your little friend gets hurt and everyone will know why. Carter flinched. Eli's jaw clenched so hard it looked painful. Mason's phone buzzed. A single message from Ms. Sloan. State investigator 3 minutes out. Stay on video. Do not engage. 3 minutes felt like a year. Carter stared at the bound kid. He couldn't take 3 minutes, not while a man on a roof counted down. Eli's voice shook. We can't wait. Mason turned to Carter, eyes steady. You want to save him? Then you do exactly what they don't expect. Carter swallowed. Which is? Mason nodded toward Carter's phone. Call 911. Speaker, right now. Carter hesitated. They'll hear. Good, Mason said. Let the call be part of the evidence. Councilman Mallory's voice boomed again. Step into the light, son. Carter's fingers fumbled the screen. He hit call. It rang once, twice. 911, what's your emergency? Carter's voice came out rough. I'm at Old River Yard, back gate. There's a minor bound at the gate under a spotlight. I believe this is an attempted coercion and assault. There are multiple adults present, including county officials. Mason leaned in, calm and precise. Tell them a deputy is on scene and appears involved. Request state response and backup. We are maintaining distance. The dispatcher's tone sharpened. Stay where you are. Do not approach. Units are being dispatched. Councilman Mallory's speaker crackled as if someone had moved it closer. Oh, he's calling for help. How noble. Carter's stomach churned. On the edge of the yard, shadows shifted. Men repositioning, phones adjusting, angles changing. Someone wanted the call recorded too, twisted into Carter staging drama. Mason nodded once like he'd expected that. He spoke louder, toward the yard, still into the 911 call. Councilman Mallory, Mason said, voice carrying. This is Mason Kane. The call is live. You are on record threatening harm to a restrained minor. Step away, now. A beat of silence. Then Mallory laughed, amplified. Mason Kane, the biker king himself. You boys filming? Get this. Carter's chest tightened. He could see phones held up like little black eyes. Mason didn't move. Deputy Raines, he called out, voice flat. You're on record too. In the spotlight spill, a figure near the pallets shifted. Raines's outline was unmistakable. Hands loose, posture relaxed, enjoying it. Evening, Mason, Raines called back, voice casual, not amplified. Just keeping the peace. By watching a bound kid, Mason said. Raines chuckled. You don't know what you're looking at. Eli leaned forward, voice sharp. We know exactly what it is. Raines's head tilted, amused. Kid, sit down. Carter's hands were numb. He kept the 911 call open, speaker on, letting every word exist outside Hollow Creek's control. Then, something changed. Headlights flared in the distance, fast approaching. Not just one set, 2, 3. The yard's shadows shifted again, but this time it wasn't confidence. It was calculation. Councilman Mallory's amplified voice came back, less playful. All right, that's enough. Let's end this. A man moved from behind the pallets toward the bound kid, quick, purposeful, like he was about to drag him away before cops arrived. Carter's body surged forward instinctively. Mason grabbed his shoulder hard. No, Carter's voice cracked. He's going to take him. Mason's eyes stayed locked on the yard, and we have him on camera doing it. The man reached the kid, grabbed his hoodie. A siren hit the night, sharp, real, close. The man froze. The kid jerked, muffled screaming behind tape. Blue lights flashed through the fence gaps, turning rusted metal into a strobe. The state investigator's unmarked vehicle slid into view at the road entrance, followed by 2 marked units that must have been nearer than anyone expected. The dispatcher's voice on Carter's phone said, Units are arriving now. Do not approach. Councilman Mallory's voice tried to regain control. Officers, this is a misunderstanding. The investigator stepped out and shouted, Everyone freeze, hands visible. For the first time all day, Deputy Rains didn't look relaxed. He turned slightly, like he was deciding which direction offered the cleanest exit. Mason's second vehicle rolled forward just enough to block a narrow lane, not aggressive, just positioned. The rider in the brush kept filming, steady hands catching faces and movements. Rains's eyes flicked toward the back of the warehouse. He moved, not running, walking fast, confident, as if he had business elsewhere. The investigator saw it instantly. "Rains, stop!" Rains didn't stop. One of the marked units cut its lights and surged forward, tires crunching gravel. Officers poured out, shouting commands. In the chaos, Councilman Mallory raised his hands high. "I'm the councilman. I'm a witness." "Then witness this," the investigator snapped, "because you're being detained." Mallory's face went stiff. "Detained? For what?" "For staging coercion involving a minor," the investigator said. "An obstruction." Two officers moved toward Mallory. His confident smile collapsed into disbelief. At the gate, another officer cut the tape from the bound kid's mouth and sliced the ties. The kid stumbled forward, sobbing, and collapsed to his knees. Carter's chest loosened for the first time in minutes. He didn't realize he'd been holding his breath until it came out as a shaky exhale. Eli's voice was low. "He's alive," Carter nodded, eyes burning. "Yeah." Then a shout ripped through the yard. "He's running!" Rains broke into a sprint toward the warehouse's far side, trying to disappear into the dark where no school camera ever pointed. Mason's jaw tightened. He didn't chase with fists. He didn't need to. He lifted his phone, still recording, and said calmly, "There, that's your peacekeeper, running from the state." The investigator sprinted after Rains with two officers. Gravel sprayed, a fence clanged, a body hit chain link. Rains struggled for a second, then stopped, breath heaving, pinned. The yard went quiet in patches as people realized the story had flipped in front of their eyes. Not Carter in cuffs, a deputy being cuffed, Councilman Mallory standing stiff with his hands behind his back, face pale, being read his rights on the dirt he'd chosen for his little show. Miss DeSloan arrived moments later in her car, stepping out with her tablet and a look that said she'd been waiting her whole career for a town like this to overplay its hand. She went straight to Denise Knox's statement forms, already prepared, already numbered. Carter finally moved, slowly, carefully, toward the kid who'd been bound. An officer held a hand up. "Stay back," the officer said, then softened when he saw Carter's face. "He's shaken. We've got him." Carter nodded, swallowing the urge to apologize to a stranger he'd never learned the name of. Eli stepped beside Carter. "They used him because they couldn't get us." Carter's voice came out thin. "They were going to make me break." Eli looked at him, and for the first time his eyes softened. "You didn't." Mason walked up behind them, gaze still scanning, making sure no one else was hiding with a phone and a plan. He stopped at Carter's side. "You held," Mason said quietly. "That's rare," Carter swallowed. "What happens now?" Mason nodded toward the flashing lights, the officers collecting phones, bagging the speaker system, photographing the adhesive can, documenting everything. "Now," Mason said, "Hollow Creek learns it can't write its own ending anymore." Weeks later, the school board meeting wasn't standing room only because of football. It was because of video, the locker room footage, the knife planting clip, the pep rally adhesive, the staged welfare check, old river yard with a bound kid, and a councilman's voice counting down. Principal Harlan resigned. Effective immediately. Coach Brannigan was placed on leave pending review. Deputy Rains was suspended, then charged. His badge finally doing what it should have done from the start: stop protecting the wrong people. Councilman Mallory's name hit the news with words he'd never been able to bury: coercion, obstruction, misuse of office. Trent, Logan, and Chase stopped looking invincible the moment adults stopped pretending not to see. Deals were offered, stories changed, friends turned. The system ate its own to survive. Carter testified anyway, not dramatic, not heroic, just honest. He said what he saw, what he heard, what he felt when he realized the town could touch his mom's medication to punish him, and when the room tried to swallow him with its silence, he kept talking. Denise Knox sat in the back of the hearing room with an inhaler in her purse and tears in her eyes because her son was finally saying out loud what everyone had trained him to swallow. By spring, Carter had a new job, outside town, because people who wanted him quiet no longer controlled every paycheck. His mom's prescriptions were handled through a different provider, documented, protected, no anonymous notes allowed to float through the system. Eli stayed at Hollow Creek long enough to finish the year, not because he loved it, but because leaving would have let them pretend none of it happened. He walked the halls like a warning sign they couldn't peel off the wall. Graduation day came warm and bright. Carter walked across the stage and accepted his diploma with hands that didn't shake. In the back row of the auditorium, Mason Kane stood for exactly 5 seconds. No applause, no show, just long enough for Carter to see him and understand what that presence meant. Not ownership, not debt. A line drawn in the sand that Hollow Creek had finally been forced to see. Carter found Eli outside afterward, away from cameras, away from teachers. They didn't hug. They didn't make speeches. Carter just nodded once. Eli nodded back. And for the first time since the locker room, the air felt like it belonged to the future instead of the town.